he's in the Spanish ward, isn't he? Yeah, he's done down there.
He's down at Lake Powell right now.
Ooh.
Well,
Have you been down the lake? I'm gonna have to show you some pictures. The drop off. They had to trench down to get the ramp so you could get to the slip. It's crazy. It's time. It's time, isn't it? We good to go? Okay, welcome, welcome. Love to get this meeting started. It is the appointed time. I'm Mayor Acerson conducting this evening. I'd like to welcome our audience. Those of you who are online, we appreciate your attendance, and we'll go ahead and get started. I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance after Councilmember Von Broderick offers an invocation.
our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the many blessings that Thou hast given us. We're grateful that we can meet tonight in this Lindon City Council meeting. We are grateful for the many blessings and bounties of life that Thou hast blessed us with. We're grateful for this beautiful city and the people that live here. We'd ask that Thou would bless and be with each of our residents to keep them safe and help them to be successful in the things they're doing in their lives. We're grateful for our city staff and for our police and fire and EMS and all of our first responders. Please bless and be with them and keep them safe as they serve us. Now, as we begin this meeting, we invite Thy Spirit to be with us, that we can discuss the items that are here, ask the appropriate questions, and be kind and considerate to one another. And again, we're grateful that we could be here tonight. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Would the audience please rise? And repeat after me the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Van. Let's go ahead and do a roll call. And Van, do you want to start us off, please?
Van Broderick, present.
Mike Fincherry, present.
Jeff Acerson, present.
Randy Powell, present.
Jake Hoyt, present.
Carolyn Lindon, present.
We could hear you. Thanks, Carolyn. Let's go ahead and address the minutes of the May 3rd, 2021 meeting. Any additions or corrections?
I have a couple, Mayor.
Thank you, Randy.
I emailed Kathy a small correction that was in, I believe it was on page 17, line 14, and I gave a copy of that to Van since he was part of that, and I have a copy here that I can give Jake. And sorry, Carolyn, I could have sent you one. If maybe you could hand that, please, to Mike.
Sure.
Just making sure that you're okay with it. It was just a little tweak, but it involved Van Broderick in that paragraph as well. And then I also had one quick correction, Kathy, that I didn't forward to you. It's on page 6 and of the packet 2 of the minutes, line 16. If we could strike that little sentence there that says a lot of accidents there. I was referring to at the time of another intersection that I was familiar with, not that particular intersection. So if we could just strike that, then that would be great. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Randy. Any?
And I would just clarify that on my comments there, I'm referring to making sure setbacks are met, not necessarily the maximum density.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing that I would maybe adjust just a little bit, Kathy, on page 17, I think it's about line 2 and my comments there, referring to the east side of the development, the transition that occurs between the existing homes and the new development. That's the part that has felt awkward to me.
Thank you.
That's what I understood it to be. Yeah, so, yeah. If the transition could be better. Yeah. Okay. Carolyn, do you have any corrections or additions?
She's muted.
You're muted, Carolyn. Anything?
Not at this time, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I just want to make sure you feel included.
Sorry.
So thank you. Okay, a motion to be in order. at this time?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of City Council meeting May 3rd, 2021 with the adjustments noted.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Van, a second by Randy. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I believe that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we have, looks like we've got an opportunity to hear from our EMS and service people. We presenting or are you presenting?
I'm going to present.
Wonderful.
Mayor, Council, Mr. Kelly, thanks for your time. Just want to recognize Chief Earl joining me tonight. He's our deputy chief. It's really just an opportunity in talking with Adam is to assure that we're meeting expectations for fire and emergency services, that I want to provide quarterly numbers, which we do, but I've asked to be able to do that face-to-face, just to give you guys,
A face to
that
recognize.
face-to-face,
That's
no
right.
mask. It's so nice. And so if I could just jump in really quick. Last year's numbers, and I'll share these with Adam and he can forward these to you guys, but the fire responses was 1,216 total calls, and 34, engine 34, which is so station 4, engine 34, rescue 34, that would, the units that come out of the Lindon station. The engine responded on 640 calls, and the medic ambulance responded on 576, which made up a total call for Orem's fire responses of 7432. So currently, this first quarter, January through the end of March, the total fire responses have been 330, which is all encompassing of total number. Those haven't been split up. We've just switched over to a new EMS reporting system, and so extracting that information will be much more detailed come the second quarter of this year. But it's right on, we're what we're expecting.
Kind of
to
on
just-
par for what.
Yeah, but I
yeah.
anticipate the summer months being a little busier, that we would see an increase in our volume. Probably this 10 to 15% is what the prediction is. I don't know if you have specific questions about calls?
Can you put that mic really close to you?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thanks, that helps.
I feel like I'm talking so loud.
Well, it helps Carolyn to be able to hear us. She's on remote, so.
Oh, perfect, thank you. If there's no questions regarding the call volume, a couple of things you may or may not be aware of is, prior to me being appointed, there was a study that Orem requested from a third-party company called Citygate, where the request at the time was to take a look at all of the services that we provide for the ability just to determine what can we do better. If there's anything, we didn't think that, at the time talking with our city manager, there weren't issues, there weren't problems. It was just, how could we deliver our services better? Or where are we at in the market? And so that study was completed and presented to our Orem City Council maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago. Time goes by so fast, it's crazy. It's like the last time I was here was not too long after I was appointed, and time's gone by so fast. There were a couple things that were brought to light in this study that we're currently working on. Have you guys had a chance? You haven't seen the study? And it's something that we can definitely share in the event that you want all the details. It's interesting in that we found our response times, and this is something Chief Earl and I identified actually before the study even came up. The two areas that we can really improve our response times is from our dispatch, when the person calls 911, to the dispatcher actually receiving the information and hitting the button that sends the crew. And then we have the next section that we can really impact is how quickly we get out of the station and get to the resident's home or business. And then there's the part that has been studied that is just the response time, the travel time within just the structure of the way the roads and everything are put together. And we have limited, obviously, the ability, we don't want to drive faster because, I mean, we want to get there as safe as we can or we can't help. So we've actually, we're impacting the call time to being dispatched and also our response times with much higher expectations than the numbers that are reflected in the study. And I think over the next 6 months, which we're tracking monthly statistics, will show that dispatch is processing calls quicker, and our guys are getting out of the station much quicker, which will then just get us to your home faster.
What is what is the length of time roughly between when the call is made until when they're dispatched, when that notice comes to leave? Has that been a big deal, or?
Yeah, I think it's a really big deal. The national standard is 90 minutes, and there are times where our averages is up into the 3 minutes, which is, there's a lot of components that come into it with transferred calls from the way the whole system is set up. If a call goes through county dispatch, there's small delay into Orem's dispatch and then processed and pushed out. Automated dispatch with our CAD system, ProQA, there's just a lot of things that by reviewing, tightening, applying a quality assurance program to our dispatch, that we're meeting now that 90 seconds
Okay.
from time to be called.
I thought you said 90
90
minutes to
minutes.
begin with,
Yeah, thank you.
but I thought it was 90
90
seconds,
minutes
so I
is
wanted clarity, because
way
I
too
thought,
long.
wow, you're doing great.
That dispatcher is very slow. Or, you know what, it's probably a stroke patient that just can't relay the message, and so, I'm sorry.
I can tell my wife that I have good hearing, because everyone else heard what I heard, right? Okay, good.
That wasn't my note.
Well, and I think it just goes along with the same conversations I have with you guys. I introduced our administrative assistant's husband as Luis. His name's Louis. Last time I was here, and I'm still getting
It's all
comments
good.
about that. So I apologize for that. So 90 seconds standard. We're sometimes up into 3 minutes, which isn't acceptable. And then we have response times, which is the same. We expect our guys day or night, 24 hours a day, to be out of that station in 90 seconds from the time the tones go off. And we've actually have an average of 3 minutes and 37 seconds.
How does it equate if they're not in the station but on another call, ending up that call and then having to come from a different location? Then how does that, is there some parameters in which to then recalculate that, or how does that work into that?
There really isn't a different, I mean, there's no way to justify the length of time. There's obviously, when the Lindon stations, particularly your community, if Station 4 is busy, or if they've been pulled into Lindon, or pulled into Orem, or they've been pulled into Pleasant Grove, they're inherently gonna be a longer response from our Station 2 or Station 3 area. And so it just depends on when that call comes in or where they're at. Chief Earl and I, with our administrative team, we're really focused on making sure that our crews are staying within their areas, and that's to eat, that's to work out. That's why you'll see them at the Vasa and 1600 North. They're not allowed to come up to the Orem City's new rec center to do their physical training. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I think they utilize your guys' community center often for their workouts in the morning and those type of activities. But the things that
Arcade.
can really impact the response to your community are just those two: staying in their area and turning out as quickly as possible to get in route. But we have started tracking all the numbers differently with our old reporting system. Even Citygate, well, there's just these long times that nobody can figure out. And so that's what we're reevaluating with better software, a better program that's really gonna allow us to meet expectations.
And I think that's a very natural thing. As you have more focus on the process, you can see where efficiencies can be improved. And, you know, I applaud your efforts in making that happen, because whether it's in Orem or Lindon or wherever it might be, that response time could be the difference between life and death. And we appreciate all the efforts that you're making on behalf of all the citizens, so.
You definitely get the behavior that you monitor. There's no question about that. But when it's trying to improve that service that we're providing, because we know you have options, and we want to continue with the relationship that we have.
Well, as a city, I'd love to just keep paying you, and we'd never have to have you go out of the fire station, you know, it's just,
Wouldn't that be nice?
that would be nice.
And especially I need to commend whoever painted the doors at the fire station. Oh my gosh, it looks so nice.
That's what my grandson said.
So nice. No longer pink fire doors. A couple of just other really quick things. Chief Earl, he's taken on the fire prevention responsibilities for our department. He works really closely with Lindon City. in providing the fire prevention resources that are needed. But one thing that we are actually doing to get our crews out of the station and into your businesses, Chief Earl's put together a plan where the captains have gone through a specific training, certification to where they'll be out in the community, in the business, completing an annual fire inspection, because we just haven't had time with our current staff. And so by essentially empowering 12 captains, it just quadrupled our fire prevention opportunities, which is the ground level for delivering better service.
So I'm going to show my lack of understanding, not anything you've said, but I would think as you go through these processes to find out efficiencies, and as you go to fire calls or emergency calls, there are elements of those, each of those situations that could be maybe prevented if maybe there was a higher level of education to our citizenry. So, and maybe we do that. I don't know if we have emergency articles within our newsletter, but if there are items or areas of concern where we can, through your expertise and your people, can identify what those pieces might be, we can include those in our newsletter on a somewhat regular basis as needed that could help educate our population. So, I mean, that's just a thought.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that I think we're struggling with the most. Both Chief Earl and I recognize that he leading fire prevention for all three communities, Orem, Vineyard, and Lindon, we only have 2 inspectors. And so trying to keep up with the volume of the 3 communities is something that contractually we need to discuss in the future, both with Lindon and Vineyard, because we obviously provide the services, the expertise when you need it, but you guys do a lot of things in-house. And so by getting us out to identify those things that we could generate some information for your community is something the only way to do it though is to a plan like this with the captains.
Yeah, but even that, but I mean, those that actually go on the calls on a fire,
Oh, sure.
you have a report of what caused it or what the situation was, that might be helpful in educating our people as well, just to bring that to their attention.
Top 5 calls were for this, and these can be prevented by taking these steps or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that. I think that's a really good idea.
Okay.
Fire safety message?
Yeah. I mean, just a reminder. I mean, we all need to be reminded. I mean, I'm trying to remember, there was something that happened just recently, and it was a situation where a person's, in fact, it was in Orem. In fact, it was a neighbor to someone I know quite closely, and they put some hot material or whatever into a trash can, and it evidently ignited the home on fire and got the carport adjacent to it. And, you know, that was just something that could have been avoided had they followed best practices. But that simple reminder might be helpful, you know, just to the forefront of our minds. So when you play with fire, someone's going to get burned, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hopefully not a human.
Yeah.
We can deal with the other things. Really quickly, response plans is a program that will help with our dispatching process. It was about a $30,000 purchase that automates our dispatching process. So now the call comes in, the computer actually identifies based on the plan that's built into the system that avoids the dispatcher having to go to a small map. I mean, I'm talking small map of the communities and figure out which street, which house, which units, which response to send, which station. And so this automatically changes that. And we're in the process of building those into our CAD system right now, which should be up and running, I would think, in the next 2 months. But that's really the Citygate presentation. I mean, once you guys go through this, I don't know if there's any specific questions. I know there was a small news article that went out probably the day after it was presented. Both police and fire did a study for Orem City. I don't know if there's anything specific that I could address. Otherwise,
Council,
I really don't
anything?
have any.
Chief, maybe a quick reminder of how many employees on each shift are in our station and what types of equipment, number of engines and ambulances. If you could give them a reminder, that would be
Yeah,
helpful.
so You currently have 4 paramedics. You have a captain, an engineer, and 2 firefighter paramedics in the Lindon station with an engine. You have an ambulance and a brush truck. I don't believe there's any other apparatus. We moved our hazmat vehicle down to Station 1 at your guys' request so that we could house that south bay with police and emergency management equipment. And so that's currently the equipment and the staffing. It's a little different, and I spoke with Adam when we made some adjustments to our personnel. We used to have 5, 5, 5, and 5 at all 4 of our stations. To me and our administrative team, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to just have a 5th person or a 3rd person riding around on the back of the engine when we had the ability to pull the 5th guy from each station and house them centrally at Station 3. When you look at the total service area's geographical map, Station 3 is almost central. And so by pulling that 5th person, it allowed us to provide 2 additional ambulances or a 2nd engine, a 5th engine, if you will, into service and enhance our service capabilities. Now, sure, there's a delay, but that 5th person riding on the engine in Lindon or Station 1, Station 2 in Orem didn't make a whole lot of sense when we're trying to do more with what we have. So by putting 6 ambulances in service inherently protects all 3 communities better than 4.
Is Station 3 the one that's off of 800 North?
That's Station 2.
Two,
So Station
okay.
3 is 1200 West.
Okay, thank
And
you.
when
Oh, yes,
when I
okay,
say
right.
central, that includes the vineyard property, which extends way out west. So for that whole service area, it's really central. But Station 2 with just Orem and Lindon, Station 2 would be probably more what you're considering.
Yeah, thank you.
Lindon is the only station that is staffed with 4 paramedics. With our last hiring, we hired 9 EMTs. And so just to be clear, an EMT can be a basic, an advanced, or a paramedic. So for the longest time, Orem only hired paramedics. They didn't hire basic EMTs or advanced EMTs. But it is really hard to hire paramedics right now. They're going to medical school. UVU started a PA program. And so guys are not going to paramedic school. So this last hiring, we hired 9 of the very best firefighter EMTs with the intention of putting them through paramedic school. But based off of our contract with Lindon City, which I reviewed, which was written in the days when Orem only hired paramedics, word for word, it specifically indicated that we would staff 4 paramedics. We don't do that at our other 3 stations. We have a paramedic and an EMT. And so there may be a time that we rotate an EMT into Station 4, or it may come to a point based off of our staffing that we have 3 paramedics and an EMT. However, that doesn't impact the level of service that's being provided to your community. It's still a paramedic level service. You just have 3 paramedics there rather than 4. If that, that makes sense.
Any comments, questions? We good? Good?
Yeah,
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate all your service.
Can we maybe have the chief address just publicly the importance of our citizens realizing how much we need to have access to the knowledge of who's living in accessory apartments, so that when you need to access somebody in an emergency, that they know that there's somebody living in an accessory apartment. It's my plug for those kinds of things.
Well, we've just barely, it's kind of interesting you bring it up because we did a Captain's Academy the month of December where we're instituting some different type of trainings, and one of our trainings is searching, a search technique that even, we are going in and searching properties on fire differently than the past. It used to be you pull up, everybody goes through the front door. Well, really, what we're trying to do now is getting outside the box, and if we can search the back of your house without a charge line, without a hose, we're putting firefighters in residence now that they can go to safely and search as much as they can without putting themselves in harm, which actually leads right to your point that you're trying to make, is that if we don't know there's an apartment and we don't have access without a hose line, we may not get into that basement or that upstairs apartment, just based on not taking that risk. I mean, and we're definitely gonna risk a lot to save a lot, but identifying for homeowners, if they have an accessory apartment, that they have residents living there, I mean, that's an important life safety issue for us, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I just, one last thing, the relationship with Chief Brower, is grateful that you hired who you hired. He's great to work with. And I appreciate him personally and professionally. So thank you for making that decision.
Well, we're glad you get along. Keep getting along, okay?
Got him in the handcuffs. We're gonna get along. Although, I don't know if you noticed, but we have a new uniform shoe.
Oh,
Oh,
they're official vans.
Thanks for your time.
light on your feet. Good job.
You know I should.
You are more than welcome to be excused. I mean, you probably attend enough council meetings that there are other things you can be doing with your time. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, let's go ahead with council reports. Van, you want to start us off, please?
Yes, I would start with a thank you to the Public Works for getting the road patched there on 400 North after that repair. It looks good, like that they cut the edges and sharp repair done right. Wanted to ask a follow-up question. We had Jared and Sarah Allred approach us a number of weeks ago regarding where the Murdoch Trail crosses 400 North and by default Center Street and 200 South, on being able to maintain that line of vision and no parking signs or paint. Can you give me an update on where we're at with that?
So we provided you a copy. There was a memo that Noah, our city engineer, sent out and recommending the signage that would be installed there.
Right.
And I don't know if that's been installed personally. I'll have to check with Juan, but my assumption was that was going up very soon, as soon as it was ordered. And so, has anybody
I haven't seen the
seen the
signs
sign?
then.
Okay, I'll follow up with that.
So that's what I wanted to follow up with then.
Watch, we'll go out there tonight, they're there.
Yeah.
So, could happen.
Well, that would be great.
Great, yeah.
Yep. That's it, thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, thank you. I'm able to make about 90% plus of the planning commission meetings, and I will have to say that we have a fabulous planning commission. We really do. It's interesting and fun to hear the different perspectives on things, and they seem to have a really good way of bringing all that together and making an ultimate decision or recommendation, I should say. So I really enjoyed that. They were a little bit relieved, well, they were a lot relieved to make their final recommendation on a few things and to move on. So I give them kudos for their good work. They're very responsible and very deliberative and so forth. In terms of planning and zoning, about all I can say there is Mike and I stay in regular contact, and he's good to keep me up to speed on things that I need to be kept up to speed on. And occasionally we go out and look at properties, look at projects, and we're due for one of those meetings here pretty soon. So that's very helpful, always to get good information. In terms of the transfer station and the solid waste board, a couple of things have happened there. We're in the process of putting out a request for qualifications to do a master plan on the transfer station. There's a lot of things that need to be done, a lot of decisions to be made as to whether or not we're going to stay there in the long run. If we do, how we're going to fix things up and so forth. We got an email today showing the tonnage of showing the tonnage of this municipal solid waste for 2021 year-to-date compared to 2020, as well as the revenues and so forth. As you might expect, with 2020 pretty much being a lockdown, there was a heck of a lot more tonnage brought to the landfill in 20 than there is year-to-date 21. Although I will say that we're still financially, we're doing very, very well. We had a lawsuit that we've been working on for a couple of years now with a contractor. We terminated their contract for non-performance, and that has been settled, signed, sealed, and delivered. There was a cash award made, which is far less than what we had anticipated. And then part of the repayment is credits for royalties that they would normally be paid for the methane gas and so forth. So in terms of other things, I won't go into any detail, but the project up above the horse trail, there's, you know, the assisted living or whatever it's called. There's the normal rumblings. I get calls every now and then, and I got a couple of calls on this last week, and all I've told them is that's winding its way through the system, and everybody will get a fair hearing. So that's what I suggested to them. So, but I do think we're going to see that sooner than later, is my belief. So. Oh, and I did have one other thing. Have we ever made a decision? Have we even had a discussion about whether or not we're interested in that recycle software that Neil Schwindeman came and reported to you?
We included that small dollar amount that was requested, and I think you were absent that meeting when he attended, and so.
Okay, thank you. Good to know.
So that it was like 1,500 or something.
Oh, it was nominal. Yeah, it was nominal.
That ring a bell? 1,200, yeah.
Okay.
So he was still going to the other cities to see what other cities would participate, and the cost was kind of a yet to be determined, depending on how many cities would jump in, so.
All right, well, I think once he gets buy-in from enough cities, then we'll hear
So
more about it.
there's a placeholder in the budget.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's all, Mayor,
All
thank
right,
you.
Randy?
Thank you, Mayor. Not a whole lot to report other than, well, two things. One is that I've got engineering, the coordination meeting with Public Works is next Wednesday. It was rescheduled, so I'll attend that next week. On an issue that we talked about last council meeting regarding the placement of stoplight or signal lights along 700 North. I happen to be going out North County Boulevard out towards Lone Peak this last little bit. I have to attend something out in that area frequently. And they have just recently, this last week, installed a new stoplight out there at Harvey Boulevard, so it's south of the high school. And it's like a light to nowhere. And I want to know where we get a light to nowhere, so we can get our Lindon, our one at the Anderson Farms, at the Anderson Boulevard, so we can get ours in sooner, because it's a light out there that does nothing. And I took some measurements off of Google Map that it's less than 2,000 feet from the one at the Cedar Hills Drive, and but it's a fully functioning light that there's nothing going across. There's not any development. There's a little bit of infrastructure going in. I don't know what. Does anyone know what they're putting in there in the?
A huge development.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah,
assumed it
is.
was. I
It
know
is,
that.
Yeah,
I know that.
it's Highland, is the area.
Yeah,
if I'm-
it's
yeah,
Highland, and I
yeah.
know.
Mayor Mann was saying.
Yeah, Mayor
that-
Mann he's taken many people out there trying to get what he wants in there. So he likes to show off his eagle out there in that area when I talk to him. But but they've got their light out there, and how does that work? That they get a light, and we're going to have a hard time getting it here for the Ivory development.
I don't know that we're going to have a hard time.
Well-
It's something that just has to meet warrants, and so whether or not it met warrants ahead of time, or they had an approved location ahead of time,
That's what
that
I'm
could have been the case. And so this spot in Lindon on 700 North, it wasn't identified as a signal, and
Until recently?
no, it was, let me back up, sorry.
sorry.
It was identified, as I recall, as a potential location for a signal, but it was not one that we knew Ivory was even coming in when that agreement was done. And so we had a street master plan with all of the full movement areas, all of the right-in, right-outs. The curb and gutter was done on 700 North before Ivory ever
Right.
applied for an application, and so.
So did Ivory apply for the application with UDOT, just learning how this works? Or was it at the time that we entered into agreement, the development agreement with Ivory? Is that around that same period of time?
There,
Sorry.
maybe I'm not following your question.
Well, I'm just wondering, at what point in their development did they then approach UDOT to get the signal light? Is that something they do
Not until
independent?
more recently, yeah.
Really?
Until the roadway was planned to go out. And so, as far as construction would be my understanding. So how Highland got a signal approved before any road connected to it, I have no idea.
Okay.
But that's not what we've seen as the practice in all of the signals.
So
that I'm
that answers a
familiar with.
lot for me, because I was assuming that it was in play, asking a request with,
It was already on the books, and it was just waiting for UDOT.
yeah, because I can remember back in 15, looking at the circle coming off that Ivory was proposing to us, and I thought as soon as we entered into that agreement with them, that would have been somewhat close to that same timeframe, but you're saying it's more recent than that.
That's my understanding, that they would have had those discussions with UDOT more recently.
Okay, and I just bring this up again because I just am concerned about residents in and out of that, as we all are. And, yeah, when I saw that light being functioning, I thought, well, dang, I want one of those too.
Well, I'll reach out to Mayor Mann and see if I can't get the backstory on that and share that with you.
Thank
There
you.
could be other circumstances such as the developer paying for all of the infrastructure and putting it
Okay.
in ahead of time. That makes a difference.
Okay,
And so the signals that we're looking at, none of them are fully funded. And so that could be an aspect of that light already being installed.
okay,
When Walmart went in, I know with their exit right now onto State Street, they put in, with the expectation of traffic flow, they put in all of the underground work before that signal was ever built or approved. And
Okay.
then they went to UDOT once it was open and applied for the signal, because there was no traffic data for UDOT
Right.
to react to. And so very soon thereafter, the light went in.
and I think at
And
the time
so-
that Walmart went in, we had maybe one traffic light in Lindon, and we had very few, and all of us that were here at that time, remember that. So that was a big light for us at 700 North, so.
Do you know is that street called Canal Boulevard? Do you think
It's
that's,
Harvey Boulevard, I believe.
Harvey
Maybe
Boulevard,
it
okay.
is,
anyway, because was it just recently opened?
yes, just this week.
Yeah, so I think it's Canal Boulevard, it's in Highland, it was opening last Saturday is when it actually
Yeah,
officially
I've
opened,
just-
so.
Yeah, it's just
I'll
been this
follow
week.
up and see what I can find out.
Thank you so much, Mayor. That's it, thank you.
Okay, Jake.
Mayor, or Adam, I just sent you a quick email. You can pull that up real quick. Geneva Road and Center Street. I've had several neighbors reach out to me. There is a business there that unloads with a forklift fairly regularly, and it backs up onto Geneva Road. Are you familiar with, have you heard a few comments? What options do we have there? I mean, I want to be business friendly, but at the same time, so Geneva and Center Street, this is what's happening. They're parking their diesel on the side of the road, but on the road, and then it seems from the neighbors that are telling me it's a daily basis that they are unloading with a forklift, which is when people are churning off of Geneva, causing it to back up, potential safety concerns if it got too backed up.
They have a truss plant on the south side of the road, so they bring trusses back and forth, back and forth. So I've tried to work with the business for about 2 years now to get their conditional use permit, their site plan approval from the planning commission. Brian and I are ready to take the next enforcement step, because I can't get them to do anything.
Is that Premier?
Didn't they have a temporary authorization for the going across the street at some point? I thought you and Chief Adams met with them.
So, yes, so we did, and they're supposed to have flaggers out there, but they don't have any approvals to be storing
I see.
stuff
On that ground.
on the ground over there. So
Yeah.
they're supposed to,
Surprised some of it hasn't disappeared with the price of wood and lumber, it's,
Gold
it's
right
just
now.
everywhere. I was just there today, yeah.
It sounds like you guys are well aware of it. I'll leave it in your capable hands, and I'll report back to my neighbors that it's being handled. I appreciate that. Heath is there behind you. 25-plus summer programs opening or going on. Our Parks and Rec does a great job of different programs. I know my kids are in many of them. including some new ones this year. My son did a hitting camp. This was put on by the city this last week. So many opportunities with our Parks and Rec. Between now and the next time we meet, our favorite amenity will be open, the pool. So exciting to have that. Anything you have to report, Heath? Just that you're staffing and you're moving forward, right?
Close, yep, that's about it, we're getting our repairs done and we've got our staff coming on board, so.
Memorial Day weekend, right? Okay.
You just bought me some time. My wife says our pool has to be open by the time the city pool's open, so. Couple weeks, thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Carolyn?
Hello there. Just two quick items. Dr. Scott Healy, who has the dental office there at 530 North on State Street, I had an opportunity to chat with him last Thursday at my dental appointment, and he said that morning there had been a very large accident on State Street, and he wanted to commend our police department for having an extremely quick response and getting that taken care of those that were involved and clearing and keeping traffic going and clearing the issue as well. So kudos to our police department. He also mentioned the project going behind him on the Norton property. Just wanted to let it be known that he is in support of the transitional housing overlay project as the type of use they're going behind him. He thinks that'll be a more low impact use than other potential commercial uses. So that's all. And then that's all I have on that note. And then the Pleasant Grove Chamber of Commerce is planning to have sponsor a concert for Pleasant Grove City this summer, as well as one in Lindon. And so Eric Jensen, our chamber president, is looking for any talent that we might recommend. He's kind of scouting out to do an outdoor park concert this summer. So this would be separate from the concerts that we do, through Lindon Days. It would be a separate event with food trucks and some nice things to get the community out and have some businesses sponsor that and have some exposure. And so if any of you know of a great band or talent group that wouldn't be too expensive, he would love any recommendations.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the Beach Boys, but I think that dates me a little bit, and they're probably still not singing, so. Maybe they'd be cheap.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Maybe
Anything
a
else?
Beach Boy cover band.
There you go.
A tribute band or something.
Is that it, Carolyn?
Yes, it is,
All
Mayor.
right,
Thank
thank you. Okay, Adam?
Just a heads up on our Memorial Day ceremony, May 31st at 9 a.m. at the City Cemetery. And I know the police are working to put that on and do that each year, and working on the agenda. Is that the right word for it? And so
Program.
the program, thank
Yeah.
you. And then just an FYI, the traffic study at 400 North and Locust, the request to consider a four-way stop. We've asked Noah, our city engineer, to review that. So he'll be working on that. And then the 700 North Walmart entrance and exit there, that evaluation, he's also looking at that, and they'll follow up with UDOT. And so we'll bring that information back with those two items, likely with him making a presentation there, so. Just an FYI on the culinary water system, we did have here a couple weeks ago an incident with sediment, a large amount of sediment that came out of our largest well down in our city center park. It was reconstructed this winter and put back into service about a month prior to this happening, and it was pulling water more gallons per minute than it had done in 20 years, and we think it was just pulling so hard it was starting to suck some of that sediment out from that strata that's down where it's drilled. And so They turned that off, ran a bunch of sampling testing when that happened, and we did get a lot of calls, dozens from residents and businesses. All of our water samples, thankfully, with our chlorination in the system, no bacteria was found. So the samples were clean. It was, the best way I can phrase it, it's treated sediment in the water. And I know that sounds terrible, but that's legitimately what it was. And so they have since then turned that well back on, and they've been able to reduce those flows. They are on order. It's a variable speed drive that will be attached to the pump and allow them to turn that flow down. But they've literally just necked down the outflow valve, and so there's not as much coming out. So it's working. Our other 3 wells are operational, thankfully, and well redundancy is certainly something, though, that we're looking at, and we've talked about in the past, we'll continue to look at in the future, so.
Adam, we have, introduced that program that we now have on our city website, where you can, what's it called?
Text my gut.
Yeah, Text My Gut. Did we get any complaints via that vehicle, or were they all just phone calls? Or what?
I don't know the answer to that, Mike.
It would just be interesting to know if people are utilizing that.
Yeah, a lot of phone calls, and so. So we will keep you updated on that. And then just an FYI, the Declaration of Candidacy again, June 1st through the 7th, so. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, Chief, I'm scheduled, right, on the 31st? You got confirmation back from me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. I just want to I checked my calendar and it's there, so I just wanted to make sure. You're welcome to remind me. It is a holiday, so my wife may have other plans, although she enjoys that experience. It's always been wonderful, so. Okay, anything else, council? We good?
No.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on. Open session, anyone here to address the council on a topic that is not on the agenda? We're good. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on the consent agenda items. There are 2 items there. Adam, do you want to just briefly state that?
Yeah, just a quick heads up on the declaration of surplus property. This is just the non-engraved bricks and pavers that were out in front of the Aquatic Center.
That was my question. Did we get the engraved ones?
We've saved those and set those aside and in process of trying to contact all those people, so. And then the other item is authorizing myself and our new treasurer as the authorized individuals to access the PTIF fund. So this is required because of the change with Donna there and the new treasurer position, so.
Mayor, I'm comfortable with both of those. I'll move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Thank you, Jake. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I believe that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item number 8's a public hearing. It's a proposed budget resolution.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, a motion by Randy,
To open the public hearing.
second by Van. All in favor?
Aye.
You're now in a public hearing, Kristen. We've been here before, right?
All together. I like it.
Let's hope the rest of the meeting's that way. Maybe.
All right, so here we are again. And so I'm presenting the proposed budget to be adopted tonight. This is more than what is necessary or required by the state. So the state just requires that the tentative budget be presented and adopted before the first meeting in May, and then the final one by June 22nd. So historically, we've done a proposed budget also, so that just helps organize along the way and figure out what we want to keep and change. And so And then as I talked about last time, that the economy is doing a lot better than what we had thought a year ago, not knowing what we're in for with that, with the COVID pandemic. And so the outlook continues to be good for the next year. So we're estimating a 4% increase in sales tax and park tax and transit tax. Those are all sales-based. So fee schedule changes. We propose a 3% increase on culinary and secondary metering and stormwater. And then sewer is a 4% increase, and then garbage and recycling are 6% increases. And so then here's how that looks for rate changes for the culinary water, the base rate and the usage rates. And then for the secondary metering, the 3% increase. The stormwater is a 3% increase. The sewer is a 4% increase. And so that's what it looks like on a family's bill that's using 8,000 gallons of culinary water, has unmetered pressurized irrigation, has 1 garbage can and 1 recycle can. So I know you were concerned with the 6% increase on the garbage and recycling, and so that's what it would look like if you had 1 garbage can and 1 recycling. That's 87 cents per month. For those on fixed incomes, they don't usually have both cans. They would probably just have 1 garbage can, and that's the 64-cent increase.
So several of these were inflationary increase recommendations by the city engineer as they did that utility rate study. And then with sewer, we're still catching up a tiny bit. And then with garbage, the biggest change was we did have an increase from Republic Services, but then also a spike due to adding the fall dumpster cleanup.
So this year, the citywide cleanup was about $20,000. It was almost $21,000 in the fall, and then $20,000 for spring cleanup.
Can you remind us what the typical one is?
So before that, it was like 5,200. So yeah, so there was a lot of tipping fees at the landfill. We had for fall, we had 6 locations with 2 dumpsters each getting emptied every day. And those costs don't include the cost of our employees going out and pushing it down, picking stuff up that was spilling out. So if we wanted to look at ways to control this cost and control, that it's only Lindon residents that are coming to the dumpsters, there's some things that we could do to save money that way, or we can continue as is and not know.
So are we planning for an increase in the budget and for the future year for that, based on that people still have stuff in their house that they might not be as bored of like they were this last year because of COVID? So we're still using that number to project?
There wasn't a decrease. I mean, it was pretty much the same from fall to spring.
Right.
We did add 1 new area out in Fieldstone in this last year that was not there in prior years. And so Fieldstone, Ivory area. And so some of this is just new growth.
Okay.
And it's residents that had requested dumpsters out in that location.
That makes sense
But we
with that
actually
one.
got rid of 2 locations. So we went from 6 locations in the fall to 5 locations in the spring.
Okay.
More strategically placed. So my question is this: do you think any of the contents of that were because Desert Industries has made it more difficult to do a drop-off, and so that
I could see that, yeah.
that we were then dumping versus DI having getting to do the dumping?
Yeah, maybe. Interesting that Mike mentioned the landfill had increases as well. And
Yeah.
so it's certainly not just Lindon, I would assume, but.
Yeah.
We went down to 5 locations, but obviously the number of times that the bins were filled, emptied, and refilled was
There was an extra day that in the spring that there wasn't in the fall. So there was 11 days in the spring and 10 days in the fall. And so we get charged by Republic every time they go and empty, and then we get charged by North Point for the tonnage. So
Does anybody have any idea if Desert Industries is going to continue this policy of donations by appointment only?
I'm sure they'll change that.
So we could maybe reassess this at a later date, I mean, for next year, at least for the next fiscal year, if we need to
Yeah.
keep it at this high price.
we also had items that were dumped at our dumpsters that we get charged extra for, like tires,
Oh,
refrigerators, mattresses.
Mhm.
And so Republic charges extra, and then the landfill
Right.
charges extra for those
Right.
items. And so the surrounding communities have tightened their restrictions.
mhm.
Where to go to Orem, it's monitored, and they only let you come to the dumpsters between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., and you have to be a resident, and they just won't let you take those items. So, you
So
know,
they actually have someone at the dumpster?
yes, they,
Wow.
and they only have like one place once a week, or for like a week, they'll be in
Oh.
South Orem, and then a week they'll be in Central Orem, and then they did 2 weeks out at Palisade.
Are there any scenarios, I wasn't, Mayor, you probably were there when they instituted the citywide cleanup. In my mind, it's a little bit separate than the garbage utility. I know we try to run a net neutral on expenses and revenues. Is this something we could offset with the general fund rather than have to pull from the garbage fund? My thought is this is a program that past councils thought, hey, let's run this program, let's have it clean up. I don't think that those on fixed income, the widows, are using this service. And my thought is, what if we keep those increases, whatever are applied directly to the citywide cleanup? What if we subsidize that with the general fund where we've had such a great year? I don't know. What?
So it benefits the citizens at large, not just those that, like you say, that we are concerned about, those with the fixed income. I like that. That's a thought.
I also agree with Jake. I think where we've had an excellent revenue year, we are also anticipating COVID funds coming in again. And once we raise fees and taxes, we won't have the ability to lower them back down if we find that the incoming funds have to be spent. I don't know why we would raise fees and taxes when we've had a great year and more funds may be coming of taxpayer dollars via the federal route.
So we're talking
Federal dollars do not have the ability to go into this fund, though. That's a separate pot of money.
Okay, council, other thoughts or comments?
So we're talking the difference between 5,500 in past years and this year.
21 or 20 plus.
Yeah, so probably it went from 10,000 for the year. I mean, and
10, 11,000.
yeah, to 40,000.
Sounds like we need to monitor it a little bit with some interns or something.
Yeah.
I know
I mean-
our business for years, we were located on 200 South on the way to the dump when the entrance was at the end of 200 South. And prior to us putting a gate on our business, that our big dumpsters would often get filled with things that didn't belong to us. And like you said, the mattresses and those were things we became responsible for because of somebody else's thoughtlessness. And so there's this thought of this lack of, or the path of least resistance for those who choose to do this. And so they're going to come and from far and wide to get rid of whatever they need to get rid of. I don't know how wide it is, but if it's easy to put it in our dumpsters, there'll be people who won't be considerate of if they should or not. They're just going to do it. So some way, if we can evaluate that, I'd be interested in looking at that.
Another option to consider in the Great Recession, we were looking for ways to cut and save money. We went from 3 dump passes down to 2. That's something that you could look at. We don't publicize that very much, that households that come in and get dump passes, we still have a fair amount. But we could promote that more and have fewer dumpsters available. And
Yeah, one
so
or the
that's an
other. Maybe we
option.
move towards kind of not taking out, but decreasing the dump passes and moving more towards fall and spring cleanup and having those monies go towards that. Or vice versa. Maybe we go back to just dump passes.
The nice thing with the dump passes is if they have those things that we get charged for more, then they bear the cost of
Yeah.
the additional.
Yeah.
The challenge too is if the dump passes allow you to bring stuff all year round that you need. If we wait till the spring and the fall, just not sure.
I've heard of some cities that don't do the dumpsters, they just mail out the dump passes once a year, sent to all households. And it's just, it is what it is, and you received it in the mail, and hopefully it's not a new resident, you know what I mean? It's,
What is your
I
best?
like the idea of promoting dump passes and making that more known around the community, and maybe our spring cleanup is, hey, come get your dump pass.
We charge by how many we use or how many we purchase from them?
so.
How many are used?
Yeah, they keep track, we keep track of that. They
Perfect.
Very careful.
That's good.
They're allowed a pickup load, and so more than on each pass, so more than those 2 pickup loads, and they're paying that additional cost.
The excess, yeah.
Is there a best guesstimate on the percentage of residents that take those, or, I mean, a number? that would give us-
10% maybe?
We can calculate that for you, I don't know that off the top of my head.
It's good.
Be a whole lot.
No, that's pretty small, I think.
But boy, those things on eBay or on classified, cheap.
That's where I get mine.
Fortune for it.
Just kidding.
Like, serious?
So let me make sure I understand what the question is or the issue. Are you suggesting that we absorb the increase in the general fund so we wouldn't have to show this increase in our truth and taxation or whatever it's called?
Not for the truth and taxation. We're just trying to decrease the amount we need to increase utilities
Right.
for that specific program.
You suggesting that for the, 64 cents in the garbage to have the general fund pay for that?
Well, probably
Or
not the whole
wider.
64, because that's 6% increase, and 3% of the increase is to cover Republic Services, 3% increase.
That's actual cost of picking up cans.
So what I think, what I understood Jake to mean is that to offset it by the amount of what we use for the spring and fall cleanup, to offset that, and so it reduces whatever that 40,000, whatever it is we have budgeted. So it makes it, I'm just gonna, it's gonna be 28 cents. I mean, I'm just guessing a number that's not correct, but you're just saying to offset it.
That's what I'm proposing. Rather than raise it through the utility rates on the residents, we can offset it with an extremely lucrative sales tax budget year. It's a philosophical argument and discussion we should probably have as a council. Carolyn and I have talked a little bit about this. I mean, every year we raise our utility rates, and I know we try to run that as a net neutral. But at what point do we have such a lucrative sales tax base that one of those benefits is that we offset some of those administrative costs through that general fund, so that we don't have to have a year where we raise 3 to 4 to 5%. I mean, it's tough. I understand the reason you want to have a net neutral. We do, however, make those transfers from the general fund for administrative costs every year. So it's something to discuss, and certainly we're far enough down this budget process that I don't want to throw a wrench and ruin Kristen's job in life for the next 3 months. But I think moving forward philosophically, man, we have raised utility rates every single year, year after year, and that is hard on these residents. We do have we are blessed as a city. We really are. You compare it, the per capita sales tax is incredible here. And maybe we can offset some of those administrative costs so it doesn't need to be an increase every single year.
Well, maybe we can look at some other things. I'm not trying to be callous, and 64 cents a month is 64 cents a month, but, maybe in our discussions, we can look at some other things that would get more bang for the buck. I'm not, trying to be mean or anything, but 64 cents a month, I doubt is going to be, the concept is a good one, and the principle is a good one.
I think it's across all the utilities, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting
I mean,
That
my
was my
bill
question.
is
that's what
year
I'm
after year
getting at.
gone up $5 to $10, right? And after 8 years, 10 years, that starts to add up. I see Lowbook Sales smiling at my sales tax comment over there.
There is, I think we need to be caution, it's a cautionary action, though, to start subsidizing legitimate costs to provide services. I'm just throwing that out there.
I
And
agree.
My next
it
question
is,
how often, I don't remember, is it every 2 years? How often do we do a rate study?
we've done it every year.
Every year.
Yeah, and so I completely get where you're going. If you're headed down that road, I think what our recommendation would be is to look at reducing those administrative costs and those transfers that we make from or into the utility funds, but still keep those rate issues at the level that is recommended. And part of, can you flip to the fund balance? Part of the things that we're looking at, I mean, we're trying to be proactive and get projects done or get needs met as far as maintenance. If you look at sewer is the one that's making us a little bit nervous here, partway over to the right. So we have several $100,000 worth of projects on lift stations, pumps, and maintenance needs on the sewer, plus the costs of treatment and staffing. So we're starting out with a fund balance of $587-ish thousand. We're ending at the bottom in the yellow with $36,000 in the sewer fund. That's not very much at all. And so, again, keep that in mind when we're talking about a 4%. This includes the 4% increase that's being proposed. And so we're building fund balances over time for specific projects, and we're setting aside some money in the water. That's one that's been better than sewer and storm drainage. But again, keep that in mind that we need to look at the broad picture.
Yeah.
Well, I'm all for helping our citizens any way that we possibly can. No question about that.
I know it's a little hard to interject here. I apologize. I hope I'm not interrupting anyone. Along the lines, I appreciate what everyone's saying, and it makes sense potentially from both sides the way you look at it. For me, ultimately, it's a tax increase, it's a rate increase. We really need to look at how needed is it, what are going to be the resources down the road, and we potentially have a pretty incredible infusion of funds coming, and we will need to put those funds to work, and I believe I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, we can use them for infrastructure such as sewer and other water infrastructure. And so when we're going to be looking at these things, to me, we need to be good fiduciary stewards and say, is this increase really needed? Could we structure things around in a way that gives our citizens a break and not do an increase just because, we can, but is it really needed? And can we put our resources to the most and best, highest use for our residents? And so with that federal funds coming, that is essentially something our residents are going to pay for and our future generations are going to pay for. So I'm not in favor of these increases at this time. I think we need to have those funds come in and allocate things in the pie accordingly, and put them to use the best way we can, because Representative Curtis made it very clear in a meeting that I attended that part of those funds, accepting those funds, is you cannot reduce any fees or taxes once you accept them.
The litmus test for me, in part, is how do we stack up against other municipalities? I think we've got to look at that too. I don't think we want to, you know, go crazy and impose all kinds of new fees or whatever, continual increases, but I think there's also the element of how do we stack up against other municipalities in terms of, you know, what we're providing for what we're charging. And I know that we did that a while ago. I don't recall it off the top of my head, but I think that's.
We do look at that every year. I would.
Sure you do, but that's.
I would caution you though, because every city has different infrastructure and different needs.
Yeah.
It's a different
different
size
density.
population, a different density. So in Lindon, we have a very low comparative density. So we have 3, 4, 5 homes per block paying for the same length of pipe and water treatment as another neighboring city that has 10 homes per block. And so your rates are going to vary dramatically between city just because of that infrastructure difference.
But as I recall, overall, there was I don't know if it was a formula, but there was some kind of, you guys came up with some kind of ability to compare us with neighboring cities.
I do have that, and I can show you from last fall, that comparison. If you'd
Yeah,
like
and
to see
that's what
that.
I'm suggesting. And anything we can do to either not increase or help, I'm all for. But again, I think part of telling the story is important for our citizens to know too, you know, where we stack up in terms of that we're not just imposing things on them just for fun.
Absolutely not, and these are not arbitrary recommendations.
No, sure.
Okay,
Okay. And I'm okay with not doing that right this second. It's okay.
okay. We can,
I was just gonna say, you know, we're very sensitive anytime you're charging somebody an increased amount. You know, sitting in those engineering meetings that Randy goes to now, a 3% increase is kind of you just broke even. You're just maintaining what you did last year as kind of the average on how that works. And with the plans that have been put together for the needed improvements and trying to fund them so that you don't get hit with a large amount later, you know, the stepped approach, even though it's painful and we all know the people that it impacts the hardest, there's some wisdom in that planning and preparation and trying to avoid the big jumps.
Yeah, it catches up with you.
Adam, what is the calculation estimate? Do we have one of what our infrastructure funds will be, the amount coming from the federal government? Do we have those figures yet?
$1.2 million.
it's right there at the bottom. Oh, I'm not sharing that screen anymore. Hang on. Approximately 1.2 million on this next round of stimulus funds. So we have had limited guidance. It has indicated that we can use it for sewer and water projects.
Broadband.
Broadband is another one, and so, but we're still waiting for more specific guidelines from the federal government on that money and how we can use it, and so.
But that's mainly for infrastructure, and how do, you know, for broadband, think about that. We're paying for Utopia, have been for years. Could that be viewed as infrastructure?
Yes, but we cannot use it for debt service.
Yeah,
and
so then,
I think that would probably be classified in that
Yeah.
manner, but.
You know, and certainly to Carolyn's point that I think we're probably, at least I'm going to agree with too, any of those funds that can be used in infrastructure that don't come with a price tag to use them, if you know what I mean, that can help offset these things would be great, one-time projects. That would be fantastic.
Which our rate increases traditionally have included future CapEx expenditures and building those fund balances. And so I don't see why they couldn't replace those at least the future CapEx spending.
For the short term, yeah.
yeah, they could supplement.
One
it.
time?
Yeah.
So this is a study that we did of 2019-20 average sewer, water, stormwater, and garbage rates combined on these different cities. These are the same cities that Orem compares with, and where our sewer treatment goes through Orem, and we have some similarities there, and so we utilize their same data. And so this is based off of a home using 9,000 gallons of sewer per month and 28,000 gallons of water per month. The secondary system is factored in and averaged into their calculations. And so some of these cities have secondary, some don't. So again, it's hard to make apples to apples comparisons, but this is as good as we can get. So Lindon's, it's in the ballpark of that average amount for these other cities. And again, some of these are a lot larger cities, 10 times our size, and have a lot more people paying into their utility system. And so we have a lesser amount of households paying.
I like Jake's idea. Maybe we may be too far down the road now, but certainly it's something worthy of study and looking at the next cycle.
I think for me, right now, I'd like to maybe dip our toes in the water before we get in too deep. And I think an easy way to access the money in the general fund is to just set aside possibly a cleanup day where that is coming through the general fund that will help offset a portion of this, just a few cents or whatever that is off of the garbage rates. I think that's a good first step. It might be small, but I think it's a first good step to try to make it a more city-wide program versus just through the garbage, the utility system. So that's kind of my shoot from the hip thought.
Well, what if we came back with a couple other alternatives for whether it be general fund or reduced administrative transfer of that nature, or something to handle that increase in garbage for this year, and we bring that to that next budget hearing? Is that
Be a great
is that
start.
okay?
Thanks.
Okay, we'll
Absolutely.
come up with several ideas and see where you want to go with that.
You have to reinvent the wheel.
On that thought, I remember well, and the days when we did a citywide, really all-intensive cleanup time, and I think it was far more unifying and seeing a lot more neighbors out there on a specific date, that perhaps we could have a little bit more community involvement in that, and again, perhaps find a way to fund that other than through this utility fee.
Yeah, not that our transfer station or the dump, whatever you want to call it out there, what's the proper word there, Mike?
We prefer transfer station.
That's what I thought. Okay, transfer station. Maybe we had a Lindon Day out there where the residents could, that way we don't have the Republic's fee, which would extend our ability to
I like that.
maybe have a broader impact community-wide and that community thought and process. And I don't know if the transfer station would be open to something like that.
Certainly would be worth running up the
I mean, that
flagpole.
might be something to think about as well, so.
That's good.
I love the comments, though. I mean, it's great you as a council are sensitive to the impact that fees and services have on each of our residents. But in turn, unfortunately, things do go up, and we just need to manage those the best we can. And I think those suggestions are great. And thanks, Adam and Kristen, for
We'll come up with
looking
some
at it. So.
ideas.
Thank you.
All right, so going on and looking at the revenues, taking out interfund transfers and the use of fund balance, their revenues are $22.9 million. See the breakout there. And then citywide expenditures, 25 million, and that, again, that's taking out transfers and use or appropriations to fund balances. So personnel changes in this budget. There's a 1.4% cost of living allowance that would be effective July 1st. Merit increase of one step on the pay scale, which is about 2.6%. At the midpoint and beyond. We do bigger steps in the beginning to help people move up quicker. And the merit increases are effective January 1st, 2022. And we'll come back to the city council after the audit is done, and we can see how we ended this fiscal year and how the economy is looking so far in at the end of 2021, and see if we still recommend that, but it will be in the budget. Then the total of the COLA and the merit increases, salaries and benefits, is $155,000. And then you can see the breakdown of how that it hits each fund. So most of it is in the general fund. Any questions on those increases? All right.
There we go, right there. Just really quick, on the building inspector position, Van, you had asked for some more details, and so we were able to get quotes from just one company that indicated on a part-time basis for us to employ somebody on a contract basis for 20 hours a week, it would be approximately $113,000 a year based on their fees and travel time. And so that exceeds significantly what we could hire a full-time person for, paying almost at the top of the range and full benefits. And so comparatively, we would recommend still looking at that in-house option for the building inspector.
I appreciate you looking at that.
You bet.
And also that company isn't taking any more business.
Yeah, they did tell us, here's all of our numbers, and by the way, we aren't interested, so they're too busy.
That's not uncommon. I've got a son who's in that profession, and it's hard to find the candidates, so.
Yep, so that is one of the positions we're looking at filling this year. And also a public works inspector that would also be doing blue stakes and SWIP inspections. And then a GIS intern at Public Works. Also, Public Works has restructured their organization down there and going from 4 superintendents to 2 superintendents and 2 leads. Then also we have an increase in insurance premiums. Medical insurance premiums are increasing 5.9%. The dental premiums are remaining the same. And so overall, it's a 5.7% increase in the benefit allowance, which is $30,000.
Can you share that Zoom? It's on that screen on Zoom. I turned it off so Carolyn can see that really quick. It's that bottom.
I'm sorry,
Second
I'm
one
wearing
over
my
to the
reading
right.
glasses, so
Oh,
I
this-
can't see that far away.
Why don't I drive and you can tell me where to
So Randy, maybe in our 100-year celebration for the city, we give a free month of everything to all of our residents or something like that.
That's quite a celebration, Mayor.
We'll get their attention, right?
For re-election again?
So one of the things that we had discussed in prior meetings is that we were looking at our compensation study. We've had a lot of positions in the last several months, particularly that we've had difficulty filling. And about every 2 to 3 years, we're looking at these compensation studies. We sent that to you separately. A lot of data and numbers that we look at, and trying to look at comparisons of similar jobs in our neighboring cities in Utah County primarily. And if those cities didn't have good comparisons with other positions, then we'd be looking outside of Utah County for those. With that compensation study, let me just explain our pay range chart as a reminder. So what we are looking at in the study is step 5 is actually the midpoint as far as the wage in our range. And so Kristen mentioned earlier that our goal is to move people up the scale a little bit faster so that they're paid a little bit better by the time they hit that midpoint and not as incentivized to leave after being trained in those first several years. And so technically our midpoint is step 5. So we're looking at that midpoint. And as an example, police officers are paid on range 17. And so police officers in our comps that we look at, very similar job description, job duty from an entry-level officer between most of the cities in Utah. And so specifically those that we looked at here in Utah County, what was done is if that midpoint was greater than 5% below the average of all of the cities that we looked at, then we recommended an adjustment. And then if the range needed to be adjusted, so we're looking at the low and the high of that range, that individual that may be such as $27.95 an hour, we would move them to the next range that is just higher. So in this case, if it went up one range to 18, then this step right there is too low, so they would go to that $29.51. So we're looking at the range, and then moving the persons whose positions are impacted into the next appropriate pay step that is suitable. So as we did that, as I mentioned, we've seen a lot of concerns as far as being a little bit behind in some of our compensation as far as wages. These job positions that are identified in red were greater than 5% below average when we looked at all of these comparisons. So then we took those specific positions and looked at our pay range chart and made some recommendations. With those, we feel like this is being conservative. We actually, this pay step is the step that wouldn't be effective until July 1st. So this is not their actual pay right now. This would be their pay starting July 1st, assuming that the council approved that 1.4% increase. So we are being conservative in our comparison, if that's one way to phrase that. Some of these were significantly off. The most significant was the mayor and city council compensation. This is something that none of you have approached me about, but we included these comps with other cities. And as far as your own compensation as well. So no elected official influence came in or even questions about that, but we did include, since you are compensated by the city as part of that. Couple positions were significantly off, but we didn't feel like we had good comparisons to their job duties here at Lindon City. We couldn't find something that exactly fit with them, and we feel like what they're being compensated at is fair, and we've talked with those individuals and let them know. A few others that are in yellow are within the 3 to 5%, but not greater than 5% below average. And then any of those that are not shaded were above the average of those cities that we compared. So a little bit unique where all of this is public information. In the private sector, none of this stuff would be available. And so I did email to you the compensation study that we have, where each of these, what we actually are part of a paid subscription where cities can go online and enter in data. And I did want to share one with you here just as an example, and now I'm not going to find it. Well, we'll take this one. So the records clerk in police department or a sheriff's office. So these are all cities that have participated in this program. On the far right is the dates that they updated this. So we do pay attention to that because some of these are behind. They haven't updated this since 2019 for a couple cities, but then a few other cities that are 2020 and 2021. We're trying to get something within the last year. And then we are comparing the midpoint in their salary range. And so what this program does is calculate those data points and spits out the midpoint in Lindon's range compared to the average of these other cities and gives us a percentage above or below midpoint. So with this specific position, we would not be recommending a change. Let's see. And then some others, it may have been higher or lower. So this one, recreation coordinator, we felt like we had some really good comps, several local cities. Again, we're looking at the midpoint in the range. This one was 13% below average of those other cities. So again, not the highest on any of our compensation. We're trying to be conservative in that, but still pay a fair wage. So questions on the data or how we came up with this, the recommendations.
The recommendations for the red and the yellow, or just the
This is
red?
just the red, so we did not recommend a change in any of those that are in the yellow. Those were just other ones that were below
On the
average.
radar for maybe future years.
Yeah,
You know, my thought is that, similar to the comment made earlier, that there's different cities have different needs and different amenities. And I tried to look through those to find a case where, oh, hey, our city employee doesn't do as much as another city's, or their job is less demanding. And I don't know that I could find one, you know, which made me think that these comparisons seem, you know, and I think that's always been taken into consideration is
yeah.
what we are and what we do and what we're trying to provide.
We do, let me find one here that would apply. We do look at other cities and weed out. Weed out cities that we don't feel are good comparisons. Well, we're gonna pick on the police chief here. So on the police chief, for instance, we don't compare to Provo and Orem. They're too big. And they have a significantly different sized force. We have other cities that are more of our size. Lehigh is one that's kind of on that border. They're pushing 70,000 people now, where we've thought about tossing them as a comparison. So that being said, though, we are intimately involved with everything that those other cities do. We have mutual aid agreements with all of those other cities. So when we have calls that we have needs on, they respond to us, and vice versa, we respond to them. We are dealing with the same similar cases. I mean, a rape, a homicide, we handle the same cases, but not as many. We don't have as many officers and thankfully not as much crime as some of these bigger cities. So there's some aspect where, yeah, a position does very similar things, but it's a different amount per se, or a different supervisory role, so.
Well, I like Jake, I've spent a lot of time on these, on this data, and I couldn't find anything that our employees did that was subpar compared to any others. In fact, we've got stellar staff, and I'm grateful that we're looking at ways to making sure that they're properly compensated, especially in this market where not only is staff in general an important commodity to have as elected officials, we lean on them heavily, but to have quality staff, which we do have. So I'm grateful that you've done such a thorough job in putting this information forward to us, Adam.
I think our staff does a lot more with even a little bit less in terms of personnel and resources and stuff. I think they do fantastic work. And I'm sorry.
In agreement.
Carolyn, any thoughts?
She's muted.
Are you muted?
She's still there, but muted, so. With the discussion that we had in our last budget meeting, there was a discussion of how we can attract and retain employees, and this kind of goes along with this compensation aspect. And as we looked at some of our policies, right now, we have a policy that overtime, except in the police department, is the only department that has an exception. Overtime is paid through compensation time, so it is not cash paid, it is accrued basically through time and a half vacation, comp time. That's been a concern that's been raised by some employees, particularly in public works and parks, where they are on call and they come out for emergencies often, so those are the departments that tend to have more overtime. And so they're building large accumulations of time off, vacation time, and not being paid per se until they use that time off. And so that was something that we looked at and would probably be the most impactful item. And so my concern as an administrator and for Kristen has always been, how do we cap that or regulate an unlimited overtime budget? And so Juan actually had a great suggestion and said, throw out a cap and put a limit of a certain dollar amount per year of overtime, and thereafter the employee would only be eligible for that comp time. So what we're recommending is that instead of that comp time being the first thing that's paid, is that for overtime on these specific departments and positions, that they receive up to a $3,000 paid overtime, time and a half, in that fiscal year, and then any time thereafter would be comp time, vacation time. That would give them more money in those paychecks where they're putting in those extra hours, and so, but
How did the employees respond to that? Have they seen
I haven't
that?
publicized this significantly. We've talked with the department heads, and I know that they've received some feedback, but I haven't individually solicited a lot of other comment. But
Department
I
heads-
have heard from the department heads that employees would greatly appreciate this. And so things like the water breaks that we've had where our water crew has been out a lot in this last month or two, they did not receive any paid overtime. It was comp time for all of that extra work. And so they're able to utilize that at some future point when they can take that time off.
But then at what point, we're kind of playing a little Russian roulette on being understaffed at the time we need to, especially if we've got
Yes.
these high numbers of comp time being given, potentially.
This, I think, satisfies our administrative concern of being able to budget a specific number for overtime. And these are conservative in these specific departments. We have not had this high of overtime, but it allows the opportunity for each to go up to that $3,000 level, should it be so.
Fortunately, only water line breaks occur Tuesday at 10 a.m. on a sunny day.
Exactly what happens.
At that,
We can only make it so, yeah.
Yep.
Questions on that?
I think that's great management by you, looking for great ways to retain and encourage employment, so.
I like it too.
I think it will go over very well. Thank you. Kristen, you want to move on there?
All right, so going from personnel to capital expenditures, we've got a more complete list of these expenditures, and then, so the numbers, the dark numbers are what's in the proposed budget, and then you can see that I've done some changes that will appear in the final budget. As we were putting this together, made some changes. So one of those changes is realized that there was a truck that one wanted in Public Works, and he thought Alex requested it, and Alex thought he requested it, and so so now it is being requested and will be in the final budget. It's the $30,000 for a fleet truck for Public Works for the new inspector.
didn't we have last time we had like a double of a piece of
Yes,
equipment?
yes.
And
There
so we're
was a-
still a little lower, all in all. Very cool.
So that was, yeah, the extra Mini X.
Mhm.
So then, these funds have specific revenue for their expenditures, and the road fund we're budgeting $1.6 million for projects. We have one that's bid out that's 1.2 billion for, and we'll start getting work in the summer.
Summer and fall.
In summer and fall. So this is more than enough to cover that. I wanted to have extra in there to start another project next year.
Do you want to pull that out, Van? Are we okay with it there? Got a smile out of him. It's good.
And then the park tax fund, there's some vet hall improvements and then playgrounds that don't qualify for impact fees. Then the park CIP fund, that's the one that's funded by impact fees. There's $70,000 there for shade over the playground in Hollow Park, and then to get power to this upper pavilion here by the pool. And then in the water fund, 3.2 million in capital expenditures. Juan's looking at doing a lot of improvements, and so I've broken it down between equipment and then improvements on secondary water, and then the improvements for culinary water, which is where most of it is. So you can see a list of those projects. And then in the sewer fund, $500,000, and 100,000 of that is vehicles and equipment, and then 237 is for special projects, and then 210 is for infiltration elimination. And that's probably something that we'll keep looking at and see if maybe how we want to balance it so we're not left with 36,000 in the sewer fund for the year. And then in the stormwater fund, we've got 600,000 for piping from the main ditch to Pheasant Brook detention pond. And then in the recreation fund, we've got 433,000 for the aquatic center and 130,000 for the community center. Taking out those last two items over at the community center, and that will appear on the final budget. Do you have any questions on capital expenditures? And then here's the fund balances, so you can see how we're projecting to start the year and the activity during the year, and then how we project to end the year. With the general fund projected to end at 31.6%, so that's higher than our previous 25% limit. We can go up to 35% with the new legislation.
So Christian, maybe you can get to this, I don't know, but there's an insert in there about the city building here itself, the roof.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, there's quite a range of options price-wise, and be interesting to know, it's at council guidance and.
Yeah, so this is an item, we had budgeted about 40,000 in the facilities budget to update some roofing needs. We've got some leaks, and the gutters have pretty much failed in several locations. And so our facilities manager got a bid, and when we were looking at this, it was several thousand to fix those items. And I said, well, go the next step and look at, do we need to repaint this or replace the aluminum roofing or the metal roofing that's on the city center right now. And so this is an item that he got a bid to remove the metal roofing, replace with new metal roofing, and install the seamless rain gutter. It was $128,000. That is not in this budget, and so we were just looking at numbers and discussing that right now. So then the second item was remove the existing metal roofing and install a 30-year shingle roofing. That would change the look and appearance of the building somewhat, and so I wanted to discuss that with you.
I assume you mean an asphalt shingle?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then the third was just to strip the paint and repaint the existing metal roofing. And then again, the seamless gutter is in all of those bids, and that was 44. So for a new roof where we are halfway through the life of this metal roof, given the age of the building, we're at 23 years, I believe, on this. Does that sound right? Was it 97, 24, 25 years? 24 years. There we go. Some of the issues that we're facing, we've got some vents in the back that for whatever reason, the rubber membranes around all of those vents have all failed, and so they're leaking at those points. And then we've got some heat tape in, I don't know what the right word is, it's the heated wire that runs along some of these areas that has failed and would need to be updated. More than anything, just wanted your feedback on this. Would the asphalt shingles change the appearance in any way that you'd be concerned about? Do we leave it as is? Just looking for your feedback.
Was there any warranties on the metal roof when it went in? Typically, metal
Fortunately-
roofs last longer than that.
Yeah, the company that had these is no longer in business. And so the manufacturer of the metal roofing is what Alex found.
Somebody help me understand, with knowledge deeper than mine, does anyone know if this metal comes as a powder coated? Or if it's just, I mean, you talk about stripping the paint off and putting it back on, I would think that it would be a different application than that. I would think that this would be a powder coated. That would be baked on, but no?
I don't know the answer to that.
Typically, that's what I would expect.
That's what, and so I'm wondering even if we were to do that with the longevity of painting a roof, how long that would last. And it's just like our firehouse doors. I mean, depend on that should have typically lasted a little longer, but I know with that western exposure, that's going to take a bigger beating than most. And having been in that industry for a long time, that would have been a warning for, but I would have wanted it to have been a powder coated situation, and obviously it wasn't. So with this, I'm wondering what, going forward, if we're just going to create more problems with painting it versus leaving as is, I don't know.
Well, that was part of my request for Alex, was
Yeah.
we'll just get a bid on asphalt shingles and let's see what that's at.
Is there any way that we have the capacity, I'm sure someone does, to do a Photoshop, if you will, of what it looks like, what it might look like with a asphalt roof on it?
It's like trying on a new hairstyle, right?
Yeah, it seems,
We can do that.
okay, but it's.
It
I don't know,
will
just-
change
just-
the look of the
Yeah,
building.
just the thought of
significantly.
it doesn't really appeal to me that much, but.
No, and the length of time on how long it's gonna last.
Last,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
that's-
great for residences, but
Yeah, I can hardly see that looking remotely attractive or effective. But then the question is, where do we get $128,000?
And that doesn't have to be this year, but I want to bring it to your attention as an item that is on our facility manager's radar.
Fair.
We do need to fix those leaks, and so that was just under, I want to say it was just under 5,000 to fix the leaks, and then some of the gutter areas that are more substantial, so.
Those
That's
are
where I was
necessary.
struggling to say, man, if I'm gonna drop 5, I may as well look at putting on a new roof, but.
Big
so,
difference,
There is.
123,000.
yeah, I'd like ideas on the warranty and on if you repainted, how long that would last, and a look at other places that have done that and what it looks like before and after.
Okay.
Dig a little deeper, a little bit more information, yeah.
Okay.
And when we
And that's-
actually get to this, it actually goes to multiple bidders, I assume.
It would, and so this was just the one bid that he's obtained from a specific company, so. This is getting in the weeds a little bit. This is not typically a legislative issue, but it would have a significant visual impact, and so I wanted to bring that to your attention, so. Okay, we'll do some more research and bring that back to you. Thank you.
Is that it? Wow, okay.
Kristen, how you feeling? Do you need any more guidance from us? I
Any
know we're
more-
coming down to the wire.
Any more council discussion here before we open it to the public? Okay. We've entertained you long enough. Any comments? Anything you'd like to add to, take away? We're
This
all
is
good?
only just shy of a $30 million budget here before us today.
All right, hearing none, I guess.
I think
Yeah, I was just gonna say, thanks for the discussion about considering impacts of cost. I just appreciate you speaking to that. That's really great. I mean, and I know that the city's doing it in a respectful way, but it's nice to hear that, because it is kind of hard, because it's the accumulation of all these 64 cents where you start to feel the pinch. It's not in that one row. So thanks for giving that some time.
We're residents just like you. We feel it, we notice it just, and that's good. That's why I think that discussion takes place, but thank you. Okay, someone want to close the public hearing?
I'll motion to close the public hearing.
second?
Motion by Jake, second by Randy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Mayor also moved to approve Resolution 2021-13-R adopting the Lindon City fiscal year 2022 proposed budget as presented with the recommendations to staff to look into the various items that we recommended.
I'll second.
We'll see that with our final.
I'm glad you stepped up, knowing that we're going to see it one more time. It seems like a revolving door. Every session we're talking about it, so. So we have a motion by Jake, a second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Thank you for all the good work, and now we need to recess to Lindon City Redevelopment
Take that
Agency.
motion. I move to recess the Lindon City Council meeting and convene as the Lindon City RDA.
I'll second.
I'll second.
That one to Carolyn, okay? Motion by Van, a second by Carolyn, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can we have like a 3 to 5 minute refreshment break?
I think that's needed. So we're gonna pause for about 3 to 5 minutes. I won't put a time clock on it, just take a quick break. Thank you for your patience.
Watch me not take it and then need it.
I know.
I don't get to say.
I said, how do we sneak you into the red list on that last budget? You doing good?
My comment was
Clay's his brother, right?
younger brother? I can't remember their ages.
Well, I sure like these chairs.
Least flattering.
I like them cheaper than.
They are. I noticed. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, man.
My bottoms ain't warmer than they should be, probably. Yeah.
I was on my way there.
Maybe that's designed so our meetings don't go as long, you know?
That, but they tend to go on. You watch, I don't take this break and then need it later.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wore really uncomfortable shoes apparently today.
Well,
I've been sitting too much and
you're good, Randy. Don't be sorry at all.
we're a little bit of history.
Make yourself comfortable.
I almost brought some socks just in case.
That sounds really comfy.
Ran some socks.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you.
I'm like 2 days away from buying one of these, and I'm like, it's hard. You never know until you really try to launch it.
No, I'm gonna wait.
I'm confusing myself, man. I feel like I keep abandoning ship.
Thank you though, Mike.
Isn't your part done? But no, that's why we're in an RDA.
Close?
You're almost
You'd be cussing me today. Hopefully we use a different point.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to re-roof my cabin, and I'm looking at metal, you know,
Yeah,
this kinda scares me. They go out of business,
hard to beat, you know what I mean?
but what do you do?
Of all the people, I mean, you just look at other
Yeah, it seems
cities
like-
and some of the stuff they have to deal with, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, we're just all friends here.
I wouldn't, I could do it.
Yeah.
No, same here. I was talking to Debbie Loray and we all went to St. George after meetings.
Just RDA meeting now. Just put the recess in.
Yeah, down Utah League of Cities meeting. There was her,
Okay, ollie in free. We're ready to start. I had to say that. I haven't said that in a long time. I mean, like centuries ago. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead. We went into the RDA, so. I guess we just need to adopt the budget, right?
Roll call
Roll call.
first.
Roll call, yep.
Okay, Van,
Van Broderick present.
Mike Vanchery present.
Jeff Acerson present.
Randy Powell present.
Jake Hoyt present.
Carolyn, you still with us?
Yes, Carolyn Lundberg, present.
Thank you. Okay, do we have minutes or anything we need?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve the minutes from May 3rd, 2021.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Jake, a second by Randy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think that passes unanimously. Now we get to, I guess, just adopt the budget, right? The
I think we
tentative
gotta do
budget?
a public hearing.
Oh, come on, can't we speed this up?
I'll make that motion as well.
Second.
You have a motion by Jake, second by Van, to open a public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now on a public hearing. Council, do you want to make any comments? Thank you. Public, any comments?
Do we need to have Kristen do anything first?
So all of these budget items were in the staff report packet and provided there for you. Just a quick reminder, we have a few RDA areas that have actually ended, and then we have a little bit left over in one of our areas down in RDA number 3 that we're reserving some funds there for specific projects. And then on 700 North, our CDA, which is the most active. And anything else you want to bring up for that, Kristen?
We're doing a transfer from the State Street RDA to the Recreation Fund to help pay for the slide improvements, the new slide.
Because it's within the boundary of the RDA.
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
And it's a recreational
Rec-
facility.
yeah.
Yeah, and just a reminder on the 700 North CDA, we are looking at future meeting, we'll be bringing forward the information to extend that out a couple years. The state allowed those CDAs to extend given the pandemic, so.
Which we want to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, any comments anywhere, everywhere? Okay, motion to close.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Thank you, Randy. Is there a second? Thank you, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so an action would be appropriate this time.
I'll motion to approve resolution 2021-3-RDA as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jake. Motion by Randy, second by Jake. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Now we need to,
I'll
Back out
move,
of this.
Mayor, to adjourn the Lindon RDA
Adjourn?
meeting. I messed that one up. And reconvene the Lindon City Council meeting.
we have a motion by Jake, a
Chore
second
there.
by Mike to go back into our city council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
We are now back in our city council meeting, and we did not leave any chairs or seats. It's amazing how that works. I love it. Okay, next item.
Enough that I have to correct it or close it?
Public hearing on a zone map amendment. Thank you, Randy. I'm sorry to speak over you. I didn't mean to. No,
I didn't mean to speak over you.
no, it's all good. So we have a motion by Randy. Is there a second to go into public hearing?
Oops, sorry.
That was close. We'll go with Van on that one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mayor, I'll recuse myself. For the same reasons as always.
On that, that's good. We're now in a public hearing and take us down that path.
All right, thank you, Mayor
Please,
and
Mike.
council members. So this evening, this is for a zone change.
Excuse me, Mike, just a second. Carolyn, are you on with us? Carolyn, are you there?
Sorry, again, Mayor, please.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're there. Okay, go ahead, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. So Rhino Realty has made application for a zone change to rezone 1.9 acres approximately there in the area in that north corner of the property at 550 South State Street. The proposal is to change the zoning from commercial general to commercial general A to allow Lobuk Sales to expand their car dealership. Originally, they were with a joint application with Elwood Holdings for the entire property. They've since separated their application. They received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission last week. It was a unanimous recommendation. And so they're here before you this evening asking for that zone change to general commercial A.
Questions, council?
I was at the planning commission meeting, they did a good job of making the presentation, the planning commission was all in agreement, and boy, what a great boon it's going to be to our sales tax, we appreciate that.
It should help, so we're hoping that we can get this approved.
That's why you're wanting to do it, right? I mean,
that new roof.
That's right.
council,
So
and
unless you have questions,
Yeah,
I
any-
don't really need to present anything else.
any questions, council?
I guess my only question, not regarding this particular portion of what you do, but inventory, trying to get inventories still available to get the trucks. I'm hearing that there's kind of been a bit of a crunch.
It
on-
has been difficult. We're
Okay.
not able to get as many as we have, so we're grateful that we have put such big effort in to getting our inventory. We're still getting more trucks than most dealers that I know of, so that's good.
More contacts perhaps, or?
More contacts, and we're beating the bushes trying to find the vehicles in any way possible. The auctions are not difficult way to do it, so we're going other ways.
Okay.
Well, I was bragging on you guys the other day. Didn't you tell us a couple of meetings ago that you guys sold 110 trucks in one?
Or
Just
more.
recently, we did 132 vehicals.
Oh, now you just showed off.
Just showing off. So, and that's a record for us, because typically we've been 80 to 90 vehicles
A
a month.
month, wow.
On that price point.
Yeah, and the price point is up more too.
35,000 is the average, is that what I remember correctly?
Can get that high.
Thank you.
All right?
Ready for motion?
Carolyn, do you have any questions or?
I just had a quick question on the east boundary. Was there any particular reason why they didn't want to just square up that boundary and not leave like a deep pie shape there for the back property?
Thought we had to have the 300 feet, and we don't mind the extra space, so. Not that I should be answering that question.
Did you hear that, Carolyn?
Just keeping in the 300 feet, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Mike, anything else?
No, if the council approves the zone change request, Rhino Realty will return back to the planning commission for their one lot subdivision matching the legal description up here on the screen and for site plan approval.
Okay, public comment. I can't get anything out of you guys. I don't know what it is. I try to tell.
Just wait. Be patient.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing if you'd like.
Thank you, Randy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Van. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we, out of the public hearing, now action on our council.
I will make a recommendation to approve ordinance number 2021-6-0, amending the zoning map from commercial general to commercial general A, and providing, well, whatever the effective date would be, but that is my motion.
Before that, just making clarification, I think they said this in planning commission, is that this won't be separated. The intent is this won't be a separate CGA. This will be that, as a city, we will not separate them. If they were, let's just say they don't want this land anymore, it would come back to the city. Sorry about this. I just thought about this.
Clarification, Mike? Go ahead.
I know that they talked about this, one of the commissioners, I actually listened to the planning commission.
I think they were talking about if this could be, so if Lowbook sales scaled back their dealership.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Could they sell this lot for?
As a CGA.
As a second dealership?
Correct.
Which, more than likely they couldn't because they're not asking for any access to State Street. And
That's what it was.
there's no building that's going to be built on here. And the separation distances between accesses may not work.
Right, and so that they pretty much, planning commission tied up all those little questions, if I remember right. Okay, that was my only
You
question.
tied them up. I love it.
I like that, just wanted to
Good
say
work.
that out loud, because those were some of my thoughts. So I'll second Mike's motion.
Okay, there's a motion by Mike, a second by Randy with that clarification. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Carolyn, you with us?
Yes, aye.
Thank you. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Record for timing on a public hearing, so we'll see See what follows.
150 this month.
Okay, item number 11 is a continued public hearing. Do we need to open that up?
This would be a separate
Okay.
item.
Let's go ahead and open it up, one of you.
Motion to open the continued public hearing.
Second.
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, Van and Mike will go there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Carolyn. Now we're in a public hearing
Yes,
for
aye.
the general plan, street master plan, map amendment ordinance. Okay. A lot of work's been done.
Let's make it just as fast. Just kidding. Just joking.
Well, it can
Yeah.
go multiple ways.
Totally
Yeah.
joking. No, totally joking. Let's talk through it. So, we took with, oh, sorry. Is it okay for me to go?
I don't know, Mike, how you wanna,
I can go through the changes, or we can just let Amy go through that. Whatever you prefer.
your choice.
Okay. Well, I'll say some things, and if I miss something, please add. So, we took the council's recommendation of what, with all 8 of those site plans, and kind of combined the different factors, came up with this design. There's a couple parts that I wanted to really specify. The council really talked about making sure that we had a larger buffer transition, and so in this design, that's why we have where it goes single-family homes, and then it goes to twin homes, and then it goes to our townhome development. Parking was a concern. We've actually added additional parking spaces in this design, so we're above the requirement on parking. We're above our requirement in open space. We feel have a really good size there. This does meet all the requirements there. Michael can kind of talk about that. There's a couple factors that we wanted to implement that, for example, one thing that we wanted to make sure wasn't happening, we didn't want a raceway going through 570. And so there's 2 factors there. Number one, we kind of created a tighter curve so that's, obviously slows down. We are happy to add a stop sign if needed on that T intersection there to completely stop traffic before it turns, besides just a yield. And then if you notice the road itself connecting into 570 there, which is, again, was part of the master plan to have that road go through, we curved that road so that we've found that, that's a traffic calming measure there as well, to curve that. Something to note is the sewer in that corner of 570 right now, it has a problem that it curves really, really tight. We are getting our sewer from State Street. We're boring under State Street to feed our development. We don't have to connect to the sewer there, but because we have the road going through, we're going to be fixing that sewer problem and connecting. If, with that road going through, we're fixing that so that homeowner right there will not, because that has happened, I think 3 times that it has backed up there and has had problems. And so because of that very sharp curve that they have, so we'll be fixing that, and it'll coming through our development and then carrying it through out to 500 as just a way for us to, help assist with the public works and in that department as well. So, Michael, did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Density stayed the same or decreased?
Well, we've decreased. We've subtracted some units. It's not a lot less like some people wanted. But we are fitting, we just kind of felt like there was a lot of discussion with the overlay that between the planning commission and the city council and where they voted on the 10 units per an acre. So we are below that. and we took off some of those. That's what, when we transitioned to twin homes there, we lowered some of the density there, and that's where we've increased the open space and added the parking and all of those other factors. So,
So Mike, what is the density? Do you have it?
I don't right offhand, if you
well,
give
if
me
you
one.
zoom right there, it's 9, we're at 9 units per an acre right now. Because it should
see
be
it on
70, so, yeah, because it should be at 77, so we're at 70, and we're at 75. Yeah, so it's just under 10 units per an acre there. We felt like some of the key points are that, that we feel like we're still providing a really nice product for what it is. You don't see a lot of townhomes with 30-foot backyards. And then you bring in the whole affordability options of new construction and what's available there. We're just trying to help provide for that demographic. And if we decrease this density even more, it's gonna increase the price and really price, and now you've priced out a lot of residents that really would love to stay in your community, and maybe they're just downsizing and want to stay in your community, maybe not even move into your community, they just want to stay there.
So you're in the low 4s, aren't you? 420, 425?
Right now, for the smaller product, one thing that's important to notice that we have 3 different products here. So we have a smaller townhome, those are the ones in the middle. The other ones on the back end that have the 30-foot backyards, those are a larger townhome product, with options of some of them having a master on the main to have that demographic. And then the twin home is a different product, and then we have obviously the single family home. So we're really trying to help create and foster a community with multiple different types of residents that would be coming here. It's not only young families, it's not only aging population, it's a mix there.
Go ahead, Mike.
That density is 9.7 units to the acre.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple things on the rear yards. These rear yards are between 7 and 10 feet in the interior units there. If you do calculate, this open space, I was calculated it at about 40,000 square feet was that interior common open space area.
Do those have backyards?
What?
Do they have fencing on those backyards?
It looks like, yes, that.
Those
if
will have
those-
the typical townhome backyards of those.
But they do have a fencing on that, because I know at one point you said that if they had the pathways through, that you would lose the fencing.
Well, no, that was the perimeter pathway that we were talking about there, sorry.
Thank
So
you.
we removed, if you notice the perimeter on the back of especially the large units, that does not have a pathway on the back end of those.
Okay.
So couple things to keep in mind. So you're considering a general plan. You're considering a change in the general plan. So the applicant filed an application to cul-de-sac 570. If you want 570 to go through, then you would be denying the applicant's application for 570. And then the other application is to amend the zoning to the planned residential development overlay zone.
So correct me if I'm wrong, number 11, which is the street master plan, if you want that to stay a cul-de-sac on agenda item 11, you move to deny?
Deny, yes.
Okay.
Okay, council, questions, comments? A lot.
I'm really slow here as I move it around.
It's all right.
So as we have the road Elwood Place that is trying to decide how you want to determine that road space is meeting the 300-foot setback off of State Street. Because the road is in the commercial section, all of the residences are back the 300 feet.
Do you want me, like, whether we can, I mean, the planning commission had talked about that was a possibility. They said what they didn't want me to do was enter from off of Elwood Place to the back of that commercial building, the long rectangle. And so we said, yeah, we'll put the fence there. But I felt like the road being in that space made for a nicer buffer, for the property and allowed for more open space and a larger green space in the middle there.
I want to see if I understand correctly.
Well, hang on,
Oh,
before,
go ahead.
before
Oh.
we leave that, I was just wanting to find out what other city council members think about that, and it's a public hearing as well.
Well,
I think that kind of increases the density of what would have normally happened if
To-
it's in that place.
To clarify, I don't get to count that land. Do you understand? Like,
Yeah, hang on just a second.
Oh,
I was
okay,
wanting to
just
get
one-
feedback from council.
yeah, I along with you, Van, I'm concerned about that. I wasn't understanding this as deeply as I do now in our last council meeting. But going back to the purpose of our overlay, I have concerns about that being, the road being used in the commercial zone for several reasons, I guess, well, at least two. And one of them is on our purpose for the overlay. It says, I brought the wrong one with me, something to do with the building ability to long-term use that commercial use. And I do feel like it's a possibility that as for future use, if that needs to change, that 300 feet is going to make a difference. And I do feel like it's just decreasing the ability to fill that space either now or in the future for what we designed this ordinance to be. And that is the main purpose, is to preserve that corridor, that 300 foot. I do think that you're being able to, this project is being able to utilize, have an open space because we're not, with this plan, being able to run that road inside the parameters of the land that's left over. And I know when Boyd was here, I said, if we could take all the parameters that we have and put them inside everything that's behind the 300 foot, and to not, for me, and to not access 570 and 500. I may have been able to come back with a pork chop on 500. That was a big maybe, but for sure on 570. And I know I've seen other plans that could do it. That is why you can get your density. But if you put the road inside of the access to those buildings, it changes the ability to get the density and to feather it into the adjoining properties or however you do this. So yeah, it does make a big difference to me, Van, that it is encroaching into the 300 feet.
I don't have an issue with it because, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, the street serves the commercial development too. Well, sure it does.
because we got it
Well,
on
sure
the
it does.
500, you can get to that.
You can get to the commercial from 500. I don't see the difference as to whether it going into residential or going into the commercial. I mean, the whole purpose is to provide access, ingress, egress. And I think this provides even, well, and I'm just gonna say it. I mean, you require that road to go another, I don't know how many feet wide, but if you go in, my guess, it probably destroys the economics of the project.
I mean,
The commission and council did review a plan that had the road on the inside.
Okay. And what did that give you in terms of units?
It was 76 units.
It was still 76?
But it didn't have the same buffering, I mean, the same transition.
The same transition, yeah.
yeah, because we took, I mean, the whole thought is that we took your guys' guidance and counsel And this commercial road, that road being in there was never a concern at all. And so and we said, from what my interpretation of each of the council members is that they were okay with that there. And so I went with this plan and designed adding all of the factors that you guys had asked about. And I even brought up, are you okay with this? I asked that, if you were okay with the road.
You asked me if I was okay with the placement of where the wall was, and not where the road was, but it was where the wall was. And so, and again, this is not what I do for a living. I do a lot of things, but I did not read that plan to see that it was 300. I know I'm not the only one that's missed that, but it still is unfortunate that I did not articulate it.
And that's a great point. I mean, something we didn't even go over this. The other part that we could be argued with, which we aren't arguing with, so I'm not saying that, but where we could argue with is how this 300 line is actually drafted on, because there were way earlier in the process, the city even gave me a different 300-foot line saying, this is how to measure it, this is where your 300 line is. And that road is way beyond where that line was, until we came back with the plan, and then they were like, oh, wait, that's not, we changed our mind. That's not how the 300 line is going to be written. It's going to be written this other way. So I'm not saying that we're holding the city against that on the miscommunication, but just understand that we feel like this commercial road is it's a way for the community to be able to access this commercial product. There might be a very high possibility that those buildings right there might not, I mean, would it make you feel more comfortable if that wasn't a long rectangle, if there was an entrance from the residential into the commercial? If I change those, I'm working with a very large tenant right now that would have some access from residential, and then, in the middle there. We're not in the subdivision plan right now, so I'm not dividing up those commercial pieces at this moment. We're just working for the overlay, and obviously the overlay is that zone change overlay is going to be a defining factor on whether this large tenant would want that. And so, and I'm not saying they can make it do with which whatever, but I saw it as a huge impact as a way for the residential community to maybe even be incorporated into the commercial with it. And then accessing that 500. So, I mean, the commercial rolling there.
Yeah. Mayor, may I just one quick comment?
Sure.
This will be my last comment, because I think everybody knows how I feel. And I feel like we've given them, they've given us more buffer than the ordinance calls for. They've given us more open space than the ordinance calls for. They have, and I grant you it's not a big difference, but the difference between 10 and 9.7, it's below what the ordinance calls for. And I can hardly conceive in my mind why that road that benefits the commercial as well as the residential, I think with the transition that they've made with the single-family residences, I think the way it's laid out right now, it provides, like she said, maximum safety. You're not going to have cars speeding. If 570 was just straight through, it would probably be a raceway unless you put traffic calming devices in there, which you could do, or stop signs. But I feel like we're just quibbling over not a lot. That's just my opinion, and I'm going to leave it at that. But I do like the roads, the way the roads go, where it disseminates the traffic. You're not going to get, it gives the opportunity for them to go in and out several different ways, which is what we've wanted all along. So with that, I'm finished.
Okay. So to Randy and Van's point, is there a modification or a direction that you would counsel, based upon what this is, what could be changed that would make it acceptable, I guess, maybe that's the, or is there? I mean, I'm,
Well, it gets down to the principle of, why the 300 feet? Why are we maintaining it? Is that for just the commercial space? And so that's why I was valuing the comments.
yeah.
Sure. The ordinance does allow for an exception, does it not? I know we don't want to get into exceptions, we've had that.
For oddly shaped parcels and.
But it doesn't exclude this road. Like, you don't need to make an exception for this road.
Well, yeah, I mean, the ordinance says, the planning commission can consider a reduction in the 300-foot line if there's viable commercial options remain for the site, a commercial lot is irregularly shaped, or the reduction does not limit future redevelopment opportunities.
That's the one I wanted, it's number 3 on that one, yeah.
Yeah. But then there's number 1 too, that does provide, if it provides for viable commercial.
So if I decrease the wall so that there was actually an access point into the commercial part, so that it wasn't such a strict wall, would that help benefit?
I think it's two sides of a bad coin for me, just because of you've got residents that are facing that. I mean, we could just get rid of all those residents right there, and that would solve the problem for me, but, well, no, it wouldn't.
Would it?
No. No, because we still have 570 open, so. Yeah, it's, I guess, a bad analogy for me. I've been a seamstress by trade for many years. If I wanted to sew a beautiful long dress, and if I had X amount of yards, but that's only 20 inches wide, I'm not going to be able to make what I want. So what we have to work with makes a difference here. The size and shape of any parcel is going to make a difference whether we can achieve that 10 maximum units per acre. So for me, by putting that road in, I've got 2 issues, and I've said this all along. By putting that road in now in the 300 foot, it allows you to be able to give us these wonderful things. Yes, I'd like to have that green space, but it also can be achieved by putting less units.
Right, but just to clarify, I have come with a different plan that had the exact amount of units without this road in the space, just, right? Okay.
Yep, got it right here.
And, yeah, and so we designed this, taking all of those meetings, feedback, and came up with this, so.
Right, and so even with this one, even with this one, I'll stay here. I am still concerned because it keeps coming up that 570 going through was on the master plan. Our master plan came way before our abilities to conceptualize what density is and the change of density. And so for me, I will maintain that having 570 open is a no vote for me.
And I hear that, and I
Right.
understand that that's from you. I just
No,
felt,
yes.
I felt, as a developer, we didn't want to put the burden only on one street. I felt there was a possibility that I could have completely closed off this entire development. And yes, you're right. The people on 500 and 570 would probably really appreciate that. And I know we probably wouldn't have anybody else come in here. But I also like to design products that I feel really, truly value the city. And I felt that would be a huge disservice, and didn't want to put my name on who in the heck designed this plan, that there's only one way in and out of this place. plus it's only State Street, and they added a bus lane, and there's a terrible accident that happens out of State Street, and now the community can't get in and out of their homes. And so I felt that it would have been a disservice to Lindon City by only hearing a couple of those voices, that yes, they're loud voices, but what is best for the entire city as far as connectivity and through and all of those other designs?
And I hear you. And I've been very open to say I've lived in these communities, maybe for not longer than a year, both times with a remodel or a build. I lived on one on Geneva Road, Trophy Homes, one in, one out. We all got along just fine, and it was lots of different densities, whether it's apartments or, you know, like condos type and townhomes. There was one in, one out, and that's why I said if we could put a cul-de-sac at the back with a crash gate, there's your emergency entrance and exit for the possibility of some sort of catastrophe on State Street. I know what it's like to live in those, and I'd like to see that at the same time to see the community be able to thrive in and itself, not in a microcosm, but people understand what they're buying when they live there. They're not buying the typical little bit of country Lindon. They're still going to have a mentality of that here, but it's those residents have purchased their homes knowing that we will protect this, and those single-family units, or those single-family dwellings there, have a right to be able to protect and come here and to have their voices.
No, absolutely.
So, I mean, those few voices
yeah,
count way heavy on me, as well as the way those citizens are going to be treated living in that community. So I weighed those very heavily with each other, and I think it can be done easily, but, you know, again.
You're right, and it can be done. I'm not saying that it couldn't be done, because I've
You
presented
you
plans.
showed me where you could do it.
Right, and I had created a plan like that, just with different feedback.
Okay,
Because- yeah.
I think,
We know where I stand.
I think we agree to disagree.
Okay,
right there.
that's fine.
Let me, if Carolyn's still on, we haven't heard from you yet, Carolyn, if you want to weigh in.
I just went through airport security, so I apologize for the delay there. I'm catching a little bit here. What I'd like to say is, what I like about this plan so far, I think a lot of things have been listened to, a lot of the concerns have been mitigated. I want to applaud the incredible increase in parking. I think that's fantastic. I really struggled with what is the right traffic flow plan. Listening to the residents are there, thinking about the residents that will be there, thinking about the overall needs of the community at large. And I could not make sense of blocking people from having access to the church. It just felt so wrong to make those folks burden 600 North, having to circle around, navigate State Street. One ingress and egress is absolutely terrible onto a highway. And as much as I would love to, you know, see those streets, those neighbors have a dead end, those are not intended to be cul-de-sacs. And I went and visited a community in Pleasant Grove. I didn't do long enough, you know, parking there to do a formal or an informal traffic study, but I will tell you it was a complex of 94 townhomes. I watched early mornings. I do a carpool there, and it dawned on me, you know, the people that live there, there wasn't some tremendous amount of traffic turning it into a highway. It was very moderate, very modest. And I thought about the people that are going to live in this community. They are our neighbors. They are going to be ward members. They're going to be ministering brothers and sisters. And to think of the people that currently live there wanting access to play dates and friends and school carpools and ecclesiastical visits, or their own family members who may live here. remember our point in creating this overlay is to create an opportunity for our children to have a place to afford to live, for our parents who are downsizing, or maybe for ourselves someday. Instead of thinking of this is them and this is us, it's all of us. And when I thought of it that way, it didn't make sense to dead end and close off. And what feels right to me is to have a more even distribution of the traffic. And I think what I like about this plan is it eliminates the straight shot into one of those roads. It creates enough curves and elbow turns that I think the logic that many residents will have, the majority of them, their trips are going to be out to the commercial State Street freeway, and the occasional interior, they'll have more than one choice, so we'll just distribute. Excuse me. So that is where I sit. I cannot feel good about closing off the streets. And I think in observing this community that I sat in front of in Pleasant Grove, it was not some gigantic amount of traffic. It's a 94-unit townhouse complex. The demographic is very spread. It's not all primarily families with children. It's spread with young professionals and starting outs, single people, older people, some family. So number one. Number two, looking at the green space and the transition points. I think that is very good. I think those have been answered to mitigate those concerns. We have a good transition. We have a good variety of housing product and price points. If those roads were to go through in a commercial fashion, there would certainly be many more cars cutting through potentially from State Street across the commercial if it was a straight commercial open way. If we went back to the drawing board and did not have the housing overlay, it's completely unpredictable what commercial user would come in there. It could be a commercial user that's far less quiet and, than a nice section of high-end townhomes and duplexes. As far as the encroachment issue, I'm weighing that. I'm not as settled on that. I like that we're creating a nice green open space. And if we require it all to fit inside, does it just not make the community have that open feel to it? And I'll yield the discussion. I've spoken long enough. Thank you.
You, Carolyn. So well, not to say where Carolyn is, but
Can I ask two questions?
Please.
It looks like you're ready to summarize. Mike, what are our rear yard setbacks in this zone if the overlay is approved?
30 feet.
So can that be shared between the units?
So you can when there's common open space provided, you can reduce the rear yard setback.
which is what's done here, right?
Which is done here, yes.
Yeah.
And then one question to Amy. I think you've done a great job addressing many of the concerns, and we're all over the place, as you know, as we each are our own individuals. For me, and I know the overlay can be approved to up to 10 acres or to 10 units per acre, but we've talked a lot about density, but I've never really seen much change in that other than that 2-unit drop.
Right, and I mean, the way the design, yeah, there's a couple factors. It's mostly all economic factors. When you've got 2x4s that are outrageous and the cement is outrageous right now, all building materials are outrageous, and then couple that with really expensive land that we had to purchase, that has already been purchased, that we have to make it work with. It just, nobody, I mean, we have the single family homes on there, but even those that's what we were trying to do, is provide an option that had some economic a choice for an individual that wants to come and live in Lindon City with that. If I drop this down to 6 units per an acre, now we're talking about a $600,000 product right off of State Street. And I just feel like we should be including more individuals that, think of the school teachers, the city workers, who can afford a $600,000 house right now? It's really difficult. So why not be able to provide an option like this that the city council had voted on, that they were comfortable with this 10 units per an acre? Why are we gonna just completely forget about that demographic of individuals, hardworking families that can't afford a $600,000 new construction home? And that's what it would, and that's not me as a developer being greedy at all. That is just because of price, of cost to build right now. That's what it would result to if we were at 6 units per an acre.
So Amy, you said 6 units. We're right now at how many units per acre? 9
We're at
point?
9.
So there's
7.
some gap between 6
I know,
and
but
9.
I'm just saying that
I'm just
the
saying there's.
individuals, where it came from is,
I'm just
it's
saying
always
there's
been,
a.
we'll just change it to 6, and I'm like, it's not gonna work at 6.
But there's a workable gap, I think.
Right.
And I don't know what that price point is. You would know better than we would, because you're in the throes of trying to make things work.
Yeah, you
If
couple
I-
that with the fact that this land has collapsible soil, so you've got to treat that and move that, and that's extra excavation all sorts of things.
Been there, done that. I've developed, you're right, you're hitting all the points. But what I'm hearing, and maybe I'm not, but if there's some give and take there on the actual units, maybe that makes it more palatable, and maybe it's more workable. I'm not saying you gotta go there, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to get,
I hear that. I can hear that.
so. Okay. Anything else you need to say, Mike, to us? Any more council comments? Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Tell us something we haven't already heard, but that's okay. Or tell us what you want us to hear, even if we've already heard it. Please, come on up, state
The
your name.
microphone.
Commercial or residential, just put the wall up, they stay on their side, we stay on our side. Nobody on 570 North wants the road to go through.
We need the mic.
We built our house 40 years ago. People that bought houses just lately there, they didn't know there was a road going through. A dead-end street, the kids, it's a nice place to live. It's residential and that's commercial. So let them just stay with the commercial. Let them work with the one on the other side. They're gonna do it anyhow.
Okay,
So,
We need his name.
and I live there. I'm just one house away from the wall. And I'm not very happy.
well, you're very calm in your presentation, so you're applauded, and your point's been made, thank you. Can we get your name one more time? Your name one more time for the record?
His name.
Oh, Gerhard Betcher. Big German name.
Okay,
Want me to spell it?
I don't know. You got it, she's got it. She speaks German, so she's got it. Okay, next. Anyone else?
You've heard from me a lot, so I'm
That's all right. Enlighten us.
So, tried to write down a couple quick notes. So this would probably be like the 6th to 8th to 10th meeting that I've gone to. And every meeting I've gone to, I have heard, whether it be the commission or the council, they ask, will you please bring the density down? That would solve quite a few of the problems. Please bring the density down. It was down to 76. I thought they could only have 76, so they've dropped, as far as I know, 1 unit. Is it for some reason 77, or is it 76 that they can technically have?
I think it's 76. I don't know. I haven't done the math, but the last proposal I think had 76. That was part of the first hearing on May 3rd.
I want to say the last couple that I've seen have been 76. It kind of seemed to have landed there. So In every single meeting, there has been, please take density down, please take density down, and they came back with one less unit. And I think
That's a movement.
that is.
Not a milestone, but.
It's a
yeah.
baby step in the right direction, I suppose, if you look at it that glass half full way. And so another thing that was commented 2 times ago, again, it was asked, the commission said, we go ahead, we send this forward, but we asked that the density go down. And then 2 meetings ago, when this was brought up, they also said, listen, there was a vote that almost denied this. They said, if you're going to bring it back, please bring it back significantly different. And I just don't believe that this is significantly different at this point. I wrote a week or 2 weeks ago, I suppose, about 2 UDOT entrances. When I called UDOT and the region, and actually the person above the region, they said they had not had a formal request. And I understand there's informal meetings first to decide whether they could have the entrances that they need or not. I would love to work to see if there is an opportunity to have 2 entrances onto State Street, because I think that would solve the majority of the problems, at least for 500 and 570. And as I looked at, if I go up and down State Street, I know they have to have certain distances between, but almost no road on State Street has those distances between them, which seems odd to me. So I think there must be some type of a process whereby you can get a variance from the 200 foot or 250 or 300 foot.
Hold that thought. Mike, can you speak to that? I know you can. I want Mike to speak to it if you could.
Might need to help me. I don't know if there is I'm sure there is a variance process, but they're gonna ask you to come in first at meeting their distance requirements of 350 feet between public streets and 200 between private accesses.
Okay.
So
That's kind of the standard by which they try to operate, and then depending on.
now, a formal application hasn't been made because that'll be made once they submit their engineering plans to the city.
Okay.
Keep
going.
In my day job, I do some work with, or have done some work with UDOT in the past, and would be happy to try to help out and see if there's a solution that works to get 2 entrances on there. Even as I go up the street here, there's a gas station, I want to say Phillips 66, that has an entrance like 15 feet off of the public road. So I'm sure there are variances, and like I said, going up and down, it seems like there's more people that are not following. I guess that would be the ideal, and I think there must be a workaround. I would love to see if that's an option.
Well, and real quick, a lot of times, UDOT still has to provide some type of access to a property. So that you may not meet those distances, but you're a property owner and you own a lot on State Street. So, but where they have a larger parcel like this, they try to get you to meet, their standards with, so.
They're standards.
Yeah.
Right?
So ideally, if you could put one on either side, that would be the ideal for me on 570, and I think for the people on 500, as we wrote a letter and most of us signed it. After that, if there was a possibility to have an entrance and then with a crash gate, like Councilwoman Powell was talking about, I think that would be a secondary option. And I feel like there's precedent for that here in Lindon. Today I drove over to Avalon. Has 2 buildings over there, only 1 entrance onto State Street, and then also has the care facility on the front side as well. And all of those units come on and off of State Street. Now, it is I'm not gonna say that's an apples to apples comparison, but that is probably the most dense, I believe, area in Lindon currently. And they have a crash gate on the backside. They had an opportunity to hook onto local roads, and the choice must have been made. I wasn't around for those meetings, but the choice must have been made at some point to just do a crash gate and not hook onto the local neighborhood roads. And so I'd ask that same kind of consideration be taken here. Again, I think this works for, I don't think that we're saying nobody should be able to live in Lindon unless they can buy half-acre lots. There's quite a few homes. Most of the development, I believe, on the west side currently is higher density. And I think that makes perfect sense because people will be buying into that knowing what they are buying into. I bought into an area that I thought was going to be half-acre lots, and that's what I would prefer. And it's difficult then to have, as you can imagine, I think if each of you thought about this as well and tried to imagine putting 76 units directly next to your house, how that would be kind of difficult for you to understand at this point in your life. And that's kind of when I bought my house, I was thinking, I'm next to half-acre lots. Eventually they'll probably put some half-acre lots. I unfortunately didn't look. I hope they put half-acre lots next to me at some point if they needed to, but instead we're now talking about 76 or 75 units right next door to me, so obviously that would not be my ideal. Also, we're talking about that every single unit that gets taken off drives the price up. That's only the case if the developer at some point doesn't eat any of those profits. So, I like, Councilman, I cannot say your last name, sorry, Councilmember.
My wife gets it wrong still, so it's okay.
And what is that?
Van Cherry.
Van Cherry. And like Councilmember Van Cherry says, I have no problem with developers making as much money as they can on their property. I mean, that is what they should be doing, that is what they're doing. I just, I believe in private property rights, but one of the things that I've always liked people say is your private property rights stop where mine begin. I believe that doing this and giving them an overlay, understand, or at least as I understand it, they currently have commercial. And so they are asking for an overlay to increase the value of their property, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it, which makes sense. But in doing that, they will be taking value away from my property as I see it. And the reason for that is if you take my home and you place it on a cul-de-sac or a stub street or a dead end, whatever you want to say, there are going to be many more buyers that would buy that house as opposed to that exact same house put on a street next to a high-density unit. And that's for people that are coming and moving to Lindon. They have an idea of what Lindon means, kind of like I did, or at least to them. They're buying a larger property. Again, I think you're going to have more buyers. And where there are more buyers, like my economics class back at BYU, it's kind of supply and demand. And supply and demand works both ways. As there's a higher supply of people that want to buy my house, the price of my house goes up. And so while it might not be significant to some, a $20,000 decrease in my property values is significant to me. And so I would ask that we not increase the property of a developer and give them something they don't currently have at the cost of my property value. So that was one thing that I would ask. I have a difficulty where the first time I met with the developer, she was talking about we will put in storage units. And don't worry, we're gonna put in a cul-de-sac and we're gonna fix the sewage. So I feel like the sewage has always been planned on being fixed, and it's not just by having this through street, that's the only way they can fix the sewage. I think the sewage was always going to be fixed regardless of the 15 different plans that I've seen. And I think even if they had the cul-de-sac, they did have kind of a knock-through for there to address the sewage as well. And so one of the difficulties she did say, and now I have a hard time, I'm trying to be
Please,
happy, or
keep the decorum.
I am trying to keep the decorum.
Okay, all right.
It's difficult for me to hear that we shouldn't listen to the loud voices, or that there are loud voices on 570. These are loud voices of people that have lived here, do live here, whether it be for 40 years, for 4 years, or somebody that bought one this year. I think as other people come and buy new properties here, they will know what they are buying into, whether it has one entrance onto State Street, 2 entrances onto State Street, or whatever it might be. They won't be surprised by it, and they will be fine with it knowing that they purchased this and they walked in, saw it all, and purchased it as is. They won't have any surprises. So anyway, that's kind of a long diatribe. I wrote most of this in a letter to you, but appreciate your careful consideration of this and would ask that you deny it as currently done and ask that we continue to keep our cul-de-sac if at all possible. So thank you very much.
Yeah, if I could just not necessarily respond, but maybe make a couple of comments. I think this council is committed to listening not only to the loud voice, but to the soft voice. That's a commitment that our planning commission and all of us as elected officials, in fact, I think we search more deeper to the softer voice to encourage them, because we know we're just like you. We're citizens. We live here in Lindon, and some of us are maybe a little bit more vocal than others, and some of us are softer than others. And I think a city is benefited by making sure everyone's voice is heard. And I think we're trying to do that. I hope we're trying to do that. And I appreciate your thorough study of this and in and out. And I'm not sure where the council's going to go on this. I guess we'll find out. So thank you for your professionalism and decorum.
And as a soft point,
Yeah,
please
that's
deny
right.
this.
You're a quick learner.
It's Justin Stewart, right?
Justin Stewart, yeah, sorry, I'm Justin Stewart. I live right there at the corner. You can see my name. I'm one of the 2 names. The Alvards were out of town, but obviously I have some.
You know, what's really crazy right now is, you know, Lindon's a great place to live, but I'm finding people buying places in an area that I would never think of buying, not just in Lindon, and they're paying an extreme amount of money and they're putting it down, and I just don't understand it. Something's gotta kinda come around, I hope. Anyone else? Comments? We good? Please.
I don't speak very well, and I forgot to bring a notebook, so I can't.
Just try to speak into the mic, because
My name
Karen-
is Mary Lindon. I live down 500 North, and I wanted to kind of second what Justin said, that the plan keeps coming back and keeps coming back, and the density never goes down. And if we can get that density down to a significant level, not 1 or 2 each time, but, I mean, for me, it would be 40 or 50 would be good for me. That's what I think would be good, and I'm really sorry that the land was expensive and all the lumber's expensive and all that stuff, but I feel like it's your job to protect us, and, you know, we bought our property there because we wanted it to be half acres, and we wanted a little bit of country, and that's why we bought that property there, and this doesn't go with that, how we bought it. And also, I mean, I would love for us, dead end both of them, that would be great. If that is dead ended and ours is open alone, we obviously don't want that down our street. We don't want all the traffic down our street. If we can get it down a lot lower, I mean, I would love to out State Street, but also we have those over here. Shawnee Keith, who doesn't really like that idea because then it sends them all down her street. So, also about the church, Carolyn was talking about the church, and I just wanted it. We don't even go to the church down the street. It's 3 doors down, and we don't even go there. We go up to the stake center, and the first 10 years we lived there, we went down 1600 North in Orem. That's where we went for the first 10 years. So I don't even know if those guys would even go to that church. It's a small church. Our board had to have a bigger church, so I don't know that that's an issue, blocking that off and putting a crash gate if that happens. Yeah. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've lived in Lindon quite a few years now, and I haven't moved, and I've gone to 3 different ward houses, so things can change. Not that they will, but one thing that's constant is change. So, any other comments? Thank you.
My name's Carly Clement. I live on 500 North and Locust. I am going to have to agree with what everybody else has said besides the developer. And when we bought the house, which we bought 8 years into our marriage, we didn't buy a new build. You know, we were working on one income, and so buying a house that's a new build is kind of unrealistic for a new couple or something like, you know what I mean, like that. So I'm gonna have to agree with what everybody has said. If we can drop that density down, I didn't buy here in Lindon, so I could have townhomes a few, you know, right next door to us. If somebody's gonna be buying here in Lindon, they're gonna be buying with the idea that there's the larger lots. And having that increase in that many people, it's a lot of people, and that's not why I live here in Lindon. So, I don't know. I don't think I have much else to say. So.
I'm sure you'd say, bring the horses back, right? Yeah. Okay, any other comments? I mean, I think we've probably a couple times, and that's good.
You know where I'm at.
Hopefully they sink in, yeah. So, I guess we can close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
I have a motion by Van, a second by Randy, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. So, maybe I can just, I mean, developer, what I'm hearing is you've got a divided council up here. I know you've made some attempts to maybe move them some way in a fashion where there'd be more of a consensus. I think each of them make very valid points. I think the one commonality that I'm hearing not only from the council, but I'm also hearing from the public, is maybe the density issue. Now, I don't know if that's a reality for you as a developer. I think I've mentioned that to you as well. And once again, you own the property. You can do with what you think is the right thing for you. There are a lot of variables that are out of your control, and that's life, unfortunately. We all deal with that. And so you got to make a decision what's best for you. This council needs to make a decision what's best for the community in which they live. So I'm willing to go one more step to see if that density issue can be addressed, that can bring more people into the fold, or at least feel like it's workable. But I'm not suggesting we have to do that. I'm gonna leave it up to the council. You're the ones that get to vote and make the motions, and I guess I'm just trying to see all the work and all the effort that's gone into this, both perceived as good and bad, or maybe not as good, to see if, I mean, the fact of the matter is, and I could be wrong, but everything I can see in Envision Utah and the planning organizations, the state, everyone's saying Utah County is growing, and it's going to be as large as Salt Lake County. It's coming. Now, the only option, well, one of the options we have some options. One is to plan for that, to try to accommodate it, to try to facilitate it, and be a part of that discussion of how we shape our community. There are discussions at the state level to actually mandate certain things. We exist as a city because of the state. And at times they kind of let us know, it seems like they're taking away what authority we feel we have as a city to plan and develop our community. I don't want to see that happen, but I also want to see us maintain control of what we feel our community should be. And honestly, it's changing. Now, the secret is, how do we allow that change to occur and still maintain, to a certain degree, what we want as a community? So that's my nonpartisan speech. I'm leaving it up to council to take us down whatever path you feel is appropriate, and I would entertain, we closed the public hearing, right? So we're good. So the option is to continue if you feel like there's any long shot way that the developer can come back and mitigate the concerns that we've heard, or if you feel like the effort that's gone forward is where it's going to go and that's it.
I'll make a motion then.
Then you need to make a motion and see what we're going to do.
Well, I'm not, but I still would like to make a comment or two.
Sure, go ahead.
Despite what I said earlier.
Always welcome.
Yeah, there's about three things. I really appreciate what you folks are going through. I understand. If I were in your position, I probably would feel different. But I also have asked myself the question from the beginning, what about the rights of those 75 people, or more than 75 people? Let's say there's 2 per unit. What about the rights of the 150 people that are looking for a place to live, that need a place that's affordable, high quality? I have to ask myself that question. That's an honest, soul-searching question that I've asked myself over and over and over. And I think it's important that we protect your rights, but I also think it's important, we keep talking about the vocal majority. Maybe with a rare exception, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that I've ever seen anyone come in here saying, yeah, this is a great project. We really like it. We want it to be here. We want to have a place where we can have grandma and grandpa move to and still be in Lindon. We want a place where we can help our kids with a down payment, which we've all done probably. I have. And they have a nice place to live that's high quality, that's got all the great amenities. A second point is it's all about the negotiation process, and that's what we've been doing. We've been negotiating for almost a year now. What I'm basically hearing is, and I'm just gonna say it, is what I'm hearing is it's pretty much your way or the highway. And I'm a little uncomfortable with that. I think if you look at a range of maybe 20 things, and I haven't counted them, if there's a range of 20 things that you've asked to be done, I would say probably 18 of them have been done. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me that everything that you would like to see happen, to me, it's just a little bit unreasonable to expect all of that to happen. I personally feel like, after meeting with staff, with the developer, after hearing hours and hours and hours of what you're saying, again, if I were in your position, maybe I would think differently. But growth is inevitable. About the only thing that we can do is to make certain that that growth is high quality, that it's affordable. We're not talking low-income housing here. We're talking about, it far exceeds the low-income threshold. And so, and I think, I'm gonna say it again, I think it's terribly unfair, and I don't have a dog in the fight. I really don't. I get nothing out of it other than the fact of being able to share my thoughts and my feelings. I think it's terribly, terribly unfair, and I will say this to Mr. Stewart's point. You have made a good point. Time and time again, the question has been asked, can we reduce the density? Can we reduce the density? Well, there's no doubt in my mind that the Planning Commission, the council, we've all looked at that. And to me, it's a heck of a long way down the road, a heck of a long way down the road to now all of a sudden decide we want to go back to the drawing board and say, well, we don't want that many. Again, my opinion, I think, and one final comment, if you'll allow me, I struggle also with this notion that it's going to affect our lives. I mean, you look at Locust. You look at my neighborhood. I live up on the bench. Everything that you folks are saying you're going to experience is exactly the same thing that other people have experienced when a new subdivision or a new development has gone in, when new businesses have gone in that have a lot of traffic, that have a lot of commotion or lights or whatever it might be. In my mind, this is no different. As I always like to say, my brand of suffering is no worse than anyone else's. It just happens to be my brand. So I think you appreciate what I'm saying. Is, I've heard things like, well, we don't want people like that in our ward, or it's going to affect our ward, it's going to affect our schools. Well, this is the same thing that's happened to every development, every subdivision, every apartment complex, everything that we've done. It's going to affect somebody. And so, I just feel like, in summary, I feel like almost everything that's been asked has been accommodated. I feel like that those people who would be buying the properties have a right to have a decent place to live. And I think the developer, I'm just saying that if we're gonna take it 10 and say it's gotta be 7 now, that's something that should have been done a long time ago, not on the eve of not on the time that we're ready to vote for it in 5 minutes. And so, yeah, that's just my opinion. How it's gonna turn out, I have no idea. I do know how I'm gonna vote, and I do appreciate you good folks, I really do. You've got every right to come and voice your opinions, but I guess in most cases, I just don't necessarily agree. So, thank you.
Okay, council.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Carolyn.
Sorry, I accidentally muted her.
Sorry, Carolyn. That wasn't me. Go ahead, Carolyn. Did you bring her back?
We'll wait.
She'll think it was her anyway.
No, they're having battling mutes.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
This is not a Sprint commercial. Okay, sorry about that. In looking at what this is gonna be, it's really interesting to talk with some folks. What could go in this space? And if we go back to the drawing board and this project let's say this doesn't happen and we go back to the drawing board and this land stays vacant. I think to the mayor's point, we're seeing incredible pressure on the state level, county level, you name it, of population growth. And I know a lot of folks have looked at this and said, 10 units to the acre, gosh, that's high density for Lindon. I was really shocked when I saw the press release that right there on 1600 North on our boundary with Orem's city has identified numerous zones along State Street that they now say can have truly high-density housing. 1600 North has a project proposed that is 55 units per acre, a 6-story apartment complex right there behind residential. It's that location there right across the street from Quick Quack that's currently a U-Haul rental place, and that just kind of blew my mind. 10 units per the acre, yeah, that feels like a lot for Lindon in planning and growth terms. This is middle density, middle-low density. And we want to have growth that is well done and managed in a way that does not, that can maintain what we love about Lindon, what keeps it great. But I fear that if we don't create these places well thought out product now, what is it going to look like when the council turns over, let's say 4 or 5 years? A whole new group of folks are on the council that think differently about what open space or what Lindon values are. The pressure could be very much more intense. I feel like this developer is bringing to us something that can have some really great benefits for a number of reasons, and fashioning it in a way that can work the best. The best project means that not everybody gets their way, everyone gets their say, but everyone probably has to give up a little bit of something for it to be the right project. I'm not saying that I'm all in one camp or the other, but I think we need to step back and recognize that growth is inevitable. And what we get here in this spot, right now, this project, talk with some folks, they say, hey, maximum 2 stories, that's great. Something that's going to still have, a quality residential is a lower impact than, say, a big 3-story building with lights shining on my yard all night and people looking down on my house, or dumpster trucks coming in the back at 6 a.m. to, take care of the trash, or a commercial user, or the entire street going through, or 5 years from now we're not looking at 10 units per acre, we're looking at an ask of much more. So I think we need to consider these things as kind of a reality. And in regards to property values being decreased, I think that's a very fair point to bring up. And I actually went and had a conversation with the president of Ivory Homes. And they have a community you might be aware of, Ivory Ridge, up in Lehigh, which is a very mixed community. They have their very largest, over 6,000 square foot model home is right next to Twin Homes, is right next to, across the way, townhomes that are much more dense than this. And I asked him, I said, do you have trouble selling the very largest executive homes right in the middle of all this for the highest value? And he said, absolutely not. He said, we can sell those big homes. They're just as desirable because the overall community has, a great look and feel to it, and having a mixed product offering doesn't, he felt, devalue those executive homes and lots. I thought that was interesting. Would that be the case here? I couldn't say. So in any event, I hope that we look at the big picture and as we consider this decision. The other point I wanted to go, if the mayor, if you may allow me, I have had a discussion with our planning director, Mike Florence, and our city attorney, Brian Hawes, in regards to the issue of if this product is what we want in Lindon, is these high-quality, single-family transitioning to large twin homes, transitioning to some upper-scale townhouses with big private yards, and then some more affordable townhouses with a big, beautiful, open back park. If that's the product that we feel right about doing, we need to make sure that these are Lindon residents, these are available for home ownership. And I would like to turn the time over to those gentlemen about how we can hopefully preserve the integrity of the purpose of this community for Lindon.
So, yeah, Carolyn and I and Brian, we've talked, Brian and I have just done some initial research, looking at some different case studies, but you probably could, you'd need some type of development agreement that would require these to be, sold for home ownership on the first round. And then probably work with the developer on their HOA percentages, with their, how much would remain as a rental product. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. There are some limitations on how long we can make those restrictions last, and there are some limitations on exactly what we can do. But there are some things that we can do to try and get these homes into private ownership to begin with.
At this stage of the game?
You're talking about this and any future similar projects?
Well, it would need to be part of your negotiation with your zone change. Is that correct?
We would need to develop a development agreement.
Yeah.
To do that.
But if we were to do that, would that not be putting in the improper order for what Amy has designed for this? I mean, this wasn't part of wasn't the game she signed up for. Am I right in saying that? I mean.
I'm just saying, it was never,
Yeah.
it was never designed it for a rental community, and I have those up in Idaho that we've designed for multifamily, that like the whole communities for rentals. This is not, it won't pencil to be a rental community.
This was the purpose in the first place.
Purpose was for home
Ownership, yeah.
I think the only concern is.
That was my thought.
We've heard,
First-time ownership, and then after that,
well, we've heard, with the Lindon Nursery, that developer may be coming in with quite a few rentals there.
Because his are single-family car garage, a lot smaller.
There are large real estate investment groups.
Right.
It's very hot right now to go in and just scoop up.
That's
if
why
not
Vineyard,
all
a lot of
project,
Vineyard
a
has
significant portion of a project.
similar projects
And
like
turn it
this.
into a rental owned only. And also, in St. George, they deal with this a lot as well. Perhaps the first round of owners and purchasers are homeowner occupied, but then they turn them into rentals. And so the way they manage it down there is, the HOAs very tightly regulate and manage that, a certain percentage can be non-owner occupied, and it's managed by the HOA. And the best way for us, from what I understand, to preserve that and the integrity of the intention of this project would be to have some teeth in that, because we all know that there could be great intentions now, but the only way to have a way to enforce that would be perhaps through a development agreement. So that's what I would like to suggest is explored.
So Carolyn, are you saying that if this were to be approved, that it would be included in this time so as to preclude it from happening in the upcoming project or any upcoming project?
Yeah, that was my question.
Is-
If we
is
have
that-
similar developments around the community,
So is that your intention of not perhaps for this particular developer, because it would be applied only to this one, but it would be to set precedents for future developments? I'll ask Carolyn and staff that. What was her intention of wanting this included in this if it were approved?
I think any project that we're looking at with this particular overlay, I think that's something that we need to discuss and consider as part of what we intend.
Okay, because I just have always understood Amy to have it be, as she has presented it, that it was for ownership. And so I was just wondering if this is not just for this one, to hold her to what she has said her intention was, but then to make it so it goes forward for
Yeah.
others?
Once the ordinance is granted or applied,
Okay.
we have no,
Sure.
we have no teeth in, verbal agreements.
Yep, I was just wondering
In order
what your
to
intent was.
I'm looking for a manner to codify
Okay,
the intent, is all.
yeah. I was just wondering why the request, I hadn't heard this one before, so thank you for clarifying that for me.
Yeah, and to clarify, the city does not enforce HOA requirements. That's by the association, and basically you're suing your neighbor to enforce it. That's kind of what it turns out to be. Which is fine, but that's where the teeth come. You've got to do it as a group, rather than look to the city to step in and do anything.
Yeah, and Mayor, just for the record, I'm all for home ownership.
Right. For example, my mother owns a property in St. George. The HOA, they were granted, the builder was granted the ability to build, and they had to have an agreement that there would be no more than a certain percentage would be for rent at any given time. And then the HOA requires the residents who wish to rent and be part of that pool of percentage that's allowed, they have to provide the lease agreement to the HOA, and the HOA manages it. They're going out, the city doesn't touch it, but just the initial setup for the city to be able to enact that, because there is a lot of pressure for, there's big money right now out there that would love to scoop up projects and pre-buy something before it even ever hits the market.
Thank you for that. I'm not sure where we're going here, so those are great comments and insight. I think we've closed the public hearing. The choice is for the council to make a motion to continue or to vote on what's at hand, so.
Mayor, I'm sorry, may I just make one comment?
Sure.
On those questions that Carolyn was asking. We could move forward tonight approving the zone change, but it would have to be conditioned, we'd have to make an express condition that it's conditioned on the council approving the development agreement. So just to understand that if Carolyn wants to go forward tonight, if we don't put that condition on, we can't come back later.
Done, yeah, it's baked, it's cooked, it's, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Okay, the mayor here that is in a soft chair and you guys are in a hard chair, so I would entertain a motion if someone
motion.
feels so
Don't
moved.
we have two motions though?
This is just this one before
This is
us,
just to deny
or approve.
or approve with this planning commission's recommendation, a denial.
This one would be for the general plan amendment for the street master plan.
Okay, if we wanted to go through, we're voting.
You
no.
deny.
We're voting no.
Now what? Double check,
Yes.
so I discussed
Just
this with
make sure every
staff.
council member knows what they're doing here.
So their original proposal was the cul-de-sac, so if you want the through street to occur, you would be denying their request for the
Okay.
cul-de-sac.
And that's why I clarified this with staff, so I am prepared to make a motion,
Okay.
if that's possible. I move to approve, which means to close the cul-de-sac, correct? Making sure. Move to approve ordinance 2021-4-0 regarding amending the Lindon City General Plan, Street Master Plan, as presented.
We have a motion, is there a second? Hearing no second, is there a time period I need to wait? That motion fails. Is there a different motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like, turn my microphone on. I would like to recommend that we approve.
Wait a second, that's what
That's what I
was
just
just
said.
done.
Yeah.
So let's make sure.
That we
get it
approve, that we
straight.
approve the denial. You didn't let me finish. No. I recommend that we deny General Plan Street Master Plan Amendment Ordinance 2021-4-0.
Which means we don't close
we
off
don't
the
close
street.
570.
Okay. That motion is on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Is there more discussion?
You know, for me, I think 12 is just more important. Before I would have switched the order, and I understand why you do that, but if we're not there on the item 12.
Okay. Thank you. We'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, which means deny, just so we're clear. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's 2 ayes. All that oppose it.
Nay.
Nay.
So it's a 2-2 tie. I have the option to break the tie. Having been a developer, having been a resident, I feel it's important. I'm not necessarily in vote of what we've been discussing as far as the plan, but I'm more in favor of keeping the openness of streets. I think it serves a public safety issue. I had 50% of the people that didn't want the street to be open and 50% of the people that wanted it open. It served a greater purpose. I put the street in. That was the first one. The second one was Center Street that went over the canal. That was, no one wanted for the longest time that one to be done. I actually didn't do that. The city did that one, I believe, if I'm correct.
And I did vote for that one to open. I was the council.
So I would vote that we would have those streets open, so I would vote in denying the closure of the streets. So you vote yay? I vote yay. So that motion carries 3-2. Okay. That doesn't mean we're home anywhere. All that means is there's still more discussion, so. So the next item is, I guess, the zone change, right? We need to open a public hearing. We ready for another
Make a
public
motion to
hearing?
open a public hearing. We have to do it
Thank
one
you.
way or the other.
Thank you, Van. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're open into a public hearing. Okay, Mike, do you want to make sure we're clear on what we're doing here so we don't have a misstep?
Yes, so this one would be the normal vote, so you,
The
so,
normal vote.
so this would be, if you want this to pass, you'd make a motion to approve it. Again, you're actually, for this one, approving the planned residential development overlay or denying it. Again, we've talked about this a lot, so if you have any questions for us as staff, we'd be glad to answer those.
Council, do you need any more public comment amongst us? Are we good? Do we know where we are?
For me, with the density where it is, I was hoping to see some movement, and that would
Yeah.
make me more favorable, but if that's where we're at,
Okay.
you know.
We know, I think we know where Mike is. We good? I think I'm clear about you. Carolyn, any comments you want to make on this one?
Sorry, I'm about to have to load a flight here. I would like to ask the developer where she's at. If that is still the one sticking point for many at this point.
Density.
I can't make it pencil at 6, so.
Once again, there's a distance there between the numbers that we're hearing, so does that help, Carolyn? Did you hear that?
I'm sorry, one more time, Mayor, what was that?
She mentioned that she can't make it pencil at 6 units per acre. I
At
tried to articulate that where it is now and that there's still some movement that can happen. So I guess the council will decide whether or not that option exists, or we just,
I guess my only other thing I would say is like, that's your final sticking point. My only other option is if you deny this, then we don't put a residential community here. I put a commercial product there. I have a backup offer for that. I don't think the city will, or the residents would be very excited about that option. But if I'm denied, my hands are tied, that's my thing. So I would say, in the event that you are absolutely gonna say no, at the plan as it is, that you continue and maybe I can figure something out to get to that compromise. But understand, I cannot make it work at 6.
We understand 6. The mayor has said over and over, though.
I know, I'm just explaining.
Can you make it work?
oh, I think it's perfectly clear, and, you know, whatever options are available to you based upon what the council decides, that's your options. So I guess I'm just trying to encourage you, having been a developer, to see where the gap is.
No, I see that.
And there may be a possibility that you might be able to get the broader support. And that isn't to say that's the right answer or the wrong answer. I'm just trying to have that discussion, so.
Did we close the public hearing?
No, we're still.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're still, yeah, I know, it's been.
Lose track of which.
Council, can I take it to the audience, see if there's anything
Please.
different that we want to hear that I think we've already heard? I mean, yes, please.
What I'd like to know is why is there not an option to, the 2 roads out to State Street instead of just the one entry?
Scott
They're worried
Healy
about
won't
that.
sell me his land.
Huh?
Scott Healy won't sell me his land, so I can't put 2 axes.
Imagine that, he has a business and he loves doing dental
Can't put
work,
it
so.
on him.
Adam, do you have a question?
If Carolyn's boarding, we may lose her.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we don't lose her for a vote.
Well, she extended it, so she has to have her question answered.
Yeah.
Or the other thing, a gate at the end of that street if there's a problem with people coming in and out of State Street.
They've now opened it. The council has now voted to open that street.
Yeah, I know, but I
Sorry.
don't understand why there couldn't have been a compromise there too.
You tried.
Okay, so, go ahead, one more time.
If you approve this plan as it looks, not on the screen at the moment, you're approving the road that's in the 300 feet of the setback for commercial, which is what the planning commission over and over and over said, that the real estate should drive the entire development, and they couldn't have anything within the 300 feet. And if you approve this, you're okaying that, which means you're gonna have to change it for somebody else down the road.
And I think she needs your name.
Joanne Martin.
Thank you. So I'm anxious to move forward and get some kind of clarity to this. I think I know where it's gonna go. Not that have the crystal ball, but is any more public comment that would help us as a council to make a decision other than what we've heard? I think we're good that way.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
We have a motion by Vanna, second by Randy, all in favor?
Aye.
Is Carolyn still there?
Carolyn, are you still there?
Yes, for a bit longer.
Let's make a motion, somebody. What
I'll
we're
make
gonna
a
do.
motion. Oh, were you going to, Ben?
I was.
Go ahead.
I move to continue, giving the developer an opportunity to come back with less density.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? I hope not. I mean, yes, but I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
I will vote aye, that we continue it. One last shot, and that's it, I think. That was very decisive, wasn't it? So you have one more shot? Well, no, you don't. Yeah, see what you can do.
And our,
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Are we clear that we want to see an option that keeps the project without using the 300-foot commercial area? We need to give some clear instructions here, Mayor.
But it wasn't part of the motion,
Yeah, it's not part of the motion, but, I mean,
so.
take that under consideration. Take that under consideration. I think, I mean, if I'm reading the tea leaves, I
That
think
is-
you should have the
That is
information.
something that a large majority of the planning commissioners have expressed was their wish.
And I don't care about
It's already done, yeah. Okay,
See, you and I do agree the fact that density is not my deal. I mean, you and I are okay with it.
you know, until you have a development agreement, everything's still on the table. But the point of the matter is, I think you saw the vote, and,
Moving
yeah.
inside, for me, I hate.
Okay, thank you. Next meeting is, when's our next meeting?
June.
I just don't want you to miss out on our next meeting. It's nice to have an audience, it's nice to have good concept.
What? I'm telling you, thank you all.
Next item on the agenda is a discussion item.
Thank you, Brian.
Regulatory
I could
updates,
use a
boy.
massage chair right now. Not a parlor, but a chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You didn't bring any samples.
This is just an outline of some things that Mike and I have been researching what other cities have done with this issue.
Oh, well,
At the end of the day, we're not gonna be hating people, we're gonna. You like it?
What would we hate, yeah. What would we
just
hate?
smile.
They're valid
We just smile.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, you drive, tell you.
Sure. Well, thank you for coming.
You're still a young man, your hair's not as white as mine. Okay.
Sure. Thank you for coming.
I just pulled it over here.
I'm gonna steal that line. I'm not as old as I'm going to get.
Yeah, I attended a funeral this week of a 90-year-old man that I told Karen after the funeral, I said, I want to go that way. He and his wife were in bed, joking, talking. She went up to go to the restroom, came back, and he passed.
He's gone. Wow. That's where I want to go.
That's,
So Mayor Jake has rejoined us through Zoom, so he
Oh.
wanted to listen to this discussion, so he might be there.
so he zoomed to another planet, huh? I don't know if you got a cookie, Jake, but if you did, we should have held off on that cookie. Had you return. Go ahead, Brian, you're gonna take us through this? Thank you.
Yeah, just really quickly, what Mike and I have done is we've kind of done a survey of how other municipalities throughout the state have addressed this issue. It's kind of been a hot topic in the last few months as different arrests have been made and whatnot. And so we've gone through, and this is just kind of an outline of requirements that we've seen other cities adopting and enforcing. The items that I've put in red are not really super frequent, but I thought they would be points that we should discuss. The items that are listed in the black are pretty uniform. Basically, the cities are requiring massage establishments to come in and get a separate distinct license from their normal business license so that we just know who's coming into the community and making sure that they're checking all of the boxes. And so they're specific. Of course, they make all of these operations get their state license, which the state has some pretty detailed licensing procedures to go through. And frankly, with what the state requires and our different codes, we pretty much can enforce already most of these terms. There are a few that we couldn't, so. But additional requirements, this restriction, some cities are restricting ownership of a massage parlor to age 21. Honestly, if you jump down to F, I'm a little leery of 21. We don't put an age restriction on any other business, and the state only requires that a person be 18 to get a license. So I'm not sure that I think that age 21 restriction is that effective. Not consistent with the state, so.
It'd be problematic.
Right. There's also a few cities that are requiring them to kind of describe exactly what services will be provided. That's reasonable. But they're also requiring what fees and rates. I'm not sure that that's super helpful, but that's a couple cities have done that. An outline of business policies and rules that will ensure compliance with the state. I think that's a reasonable one that I've only seen one other city adopt, but I think that that's come in with a business plan and let us make sure that you understand first and foremost what the state and city is going to be requiring of you. They require background checks on a number of cities to make sure applicants haven't been denied this type of use in other facilities. Mike has had a number of experiences where these type of facilities will pop up in one city, get shut down, then they'll pop up again, and they just kind of they rotate through the cities. So this 5-year look back period is probably appropriate. And same with the criminal history.
Move, huh?
Yeah, they know
chased.
They know they're being targeted.
So is there some sort of registry for these, other than them providing it, and we just have to take you just go through?
Sometimes you can look through the business link at the state and.
Right.
And search.
But
the
also,
name,
but it's you just have to change it by one letter, or just change it, I mean, so it's a really easy thing to manipulate.
And what this does by having, you're absolutely right, Randy, but what it would do by putting this into our ordinance is if we do come back later and find that they changed things by that much and it's the same business operator that's associated with it, we can yank their license and we can charge them criminally, as you'll see when we get to the penalty section.
Okay.
So I think that's, we're just putting them on notice that we're watching and we're going back and we're looking.
Okay.
And if they falsify any of these things, that gives us some teeth to yank their license and to prosecute.
Falsification/fudge, I mean, it's just like,
Exactly. Same with the criminal history. That's harder for them to fudge.
Right.
We can do that one, but I think that's a reasonable requirement to have them give us a history of any denials or revocations.
And they would get that through BCI.
BCI. Yep.
Are there penalties if they did lie on something like that?
Yeah, we would adopt an ordinance at the end of the very last page. We have a penalty provision that would make it a Class B misdemeanor. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about those penalties and how we can enforce them.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself.
Go ahead.
But is there going to be an opportunity to either look at or require them to have a partnership in a business? I mean, having some sort of a partner business, whether they're tied to a salon or a chiropractor or, some sort of entity that legitimizes their business?
I was gonna ask you that too. My son's a chiropractor.
Right.
In Provo, they have a, for lack of a better word, a stable of masseuses. You call and you schedule through the chiropractic office. They're 1099 employees. And that was my question too, Randy, so thank you for bringing that up.
South Salt Lake had that ordinance requirement. They just recently amended their ordinance to take that out, and I'm not sure.
They still have it, they allowed it as part of a day salon.
Oh, okay.
But that was still causing problems, so they've
Really?
redefined it, so it's now part of like a physical therapist or office.
Chiropractic.
Which is interesting. We've got kids that own a day spa, and they've had a full-time, most of the time, somebody that's been there, and it's always been a good portion of their business. Other portions have taken over, and the need for that room for a different type of aesthetics has made it so they don't use it for a masseuse any longer. But I know that for a nice salon, and that's a really high, can be a high demand.
Sure. But what I'm hearing is we're not going to allow, we're looking to restrict these massage parlors if that's the only service they
Yeah,
issue,
that's
we're not going to allow that. It's got to be connected. That's what you're
Okay,
looking for.
yes, I'm looking for,
I think we have to define it, because I've had experience where, you know, they stuck a little nail table
okay,
Yeah.
right?
in one corner and called that a.
Personal experience?
I'd probably shut down more massage parlors than anybody else in the state.
What I'd like to see, and maybe you're addressing this, is that it have the massage portion to be secondary to the main business. So, I mean, if it's a certain,
I have
it has
not
to be more
included
than a
that.
nail station.
I have not included that because I didn't find it specifically in these other ones, but I've got a note to, we'll look at that and
Okay.
see if
I don't,
exactly.
if this is further on in your presentation, I apologize.
It wasn't.
Okay.
That was a good question. I had not included that because I had not seen that in
Okay.
any of the other municipalities.
Can
And
we
I
leave-
apologize, Mike, I didn't see it there in South Salt Lake, but I didn't realize that they had moved it into that other section, so.
Can we legally require them to be US citizens?
I don't think so.
That was my point.
I was gonna say, that's why that's in red.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
They have to have a legal ability to work, so they have to
Yes,
have their.
they, US citizens may, yes. Utah citizens, I don't know that we
Yeah,
can do
US,
that.
because they have to have
A work
Working
visa.
card.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
they
have to
can-
have the right to work.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, but not a Utah resident or.
Right,
Okay,
right.
that makes
And
sense.
again, I think the logic behind that is they want to make sure that these facilities have a connection to the community. But I do think the city that adopted this one was stretching that a little bit.
Okay,
So I would not suggest that we include
No.
that one. Conditions of the business location and the license, physical conditions, we would just make sure they go through DRC. We refer them to the police department to search for outstanding warrants or criminal histories of the applicant and each of the employees providing massages. And then this one, referred to the Utah County Health Department for certification of the premises. I think this is very logical. I just don't know how well Utah County Health Department is going to facilitate that. And so I put that in red just so that we can,
I will ask that question on the 25th. We have our quarterly meetings. So
okay.
thank you.
I know that is, they try to regulate those a little bit, but yeah,
Are they gonna come in and send somebody to inspect a premises?
probably not.
Probably not.
But I'll bring that up for discussion.
But what you do, Mayor, if you could stress, and this is why I brought this to the attention of staff, is that, you know, it's not just making sure that things are sanitary, it's also to be a opportunity to have eyes on a situation that could potentially be involving human trafficking.
A tool if you need it.
Yep, thank you. So this is a great multi-purpose tool.
No, I can see
The
Eric.
Health Department could do
I can
that.
see that as something that they would want to have some oversight.
Okay, and then the prohibited acts that we're seeing in these statutes, I really like number one is they're imposing individual liability on each massage therapist and masseuse to be licensed, as well as number two, they're imposing a separate liability on the business for allowing someone to practice without a license.
Go
So
after everybody.
they go after everybody. And
Liability in the context of a fine?
a fine, a criminal
Criminal fine,
penalty. This would be a Class B misdemeanor, is what we would be looking at. Of course, they're very consistent, these ordinances, in not allowing any alcoholic beverage on the premises to either be stored or to be consumed. 4, 5, and 6 are, you know, what we're looking for. This term, specific anatomical areas, those are very well defined in our sexually oriented business code section. Just basically covers the parts that need to be covered, so.
Or, yes,
That could be
literally
uncovered.
should be covered. Right.
And then the sexual activity restrictions, again, it's a very detailed definition that we already have in our code, and just is prohibiting any type of sexual activity. Number 7, I like this one because of what you were talking about with the human trafficking. I only saw this, I think Pleasant Grove was the only one who had this provision, but I like that. I mean, right now, our commercial code prohibits any part of the building to be used as a residential unless it's in that mixed use. But they can have, you know, a night guard station. But this would restrict any use of it to be used as a residential purpose. You know, so if we find that there are people residing in there, that gives us an ability to pull that
Good.
license and to go after them.
Good.
Number 8, again, just, it kind of takes this step a little bit farther, that you're not gonna be able to have any exhibition. You know, you can't do a nude massage for a undelicate term there. But I only saw one or two, I only saw Pleasant Grove again. I think it was Pleasant Grove who had this in there. I like that one. I think that it should be something that we include.
Well, number 8?
Number 8.
Yeah, I think
Specifics
obviously
matter.
that someone somehow skirted around the issue.
Right,
And this kind of nails it, that
Right.
not even in the bathroom.
right, right, exactly.
Well, just a quick question for you, because I get massages regularly
Uh-huh,
at a sanctioned, licensed, clean place,
right.
okay?
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. But you are naked,
Right,
but they cover you extremely well, so.
Right.
Is that, are we making a distinction there?
It's part of
that's
the
the definition
training.
of the specific anatomical areas, is only that genitalia area that has to be covered. And so you can step out, they step out while you change and get yourself covered,
Yeah.
and then can come back in, they're complying.
Okay.
But if they're standing there as you're disrobing, and that would be a violation.
Gotcha, that makes
So,
sense.
yeah. And then number 9 was interesting. I guess I'm not sure how often this comes up. I only saw it in a couple of the ordinances, but there's an actual penalty to hold yourself out as a licensed facility when you're not actually licensed. Again, it's just more teeth. I don't know that,
Oh, you'll need it.
yeah, I was gonna say,
If people that do
all the.
underhanded things,
It's
we're
all the
going to
time.
do that.
Yeah, so I do like the teeth that it's there. I just wasn't sure how often we would run into that. Because if they're operating without a license, I would be surprised to see them advertising that would draw our attention, but you never know. And we can draft this. I was thinking about this as we were going through the meeting today. We can draft this to include any type of advertising. So if they're on Craigslist or any of those other websites, we could make sure that definition includes that. And then 10 is just a general catch-all. You have to comply with the state's,
Well, I think
the
that
law.
comes into place too, because, it sounds like we had a lot of reiki businesses, but, where you're not, according to that, you didn't touch anybody, but they really were doing the
Right.
massage.
Yes.
And
So,
Tell them what you said. The kind of touching the aura,
The
the
aura.
spiritual.
Yes,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
your chakra.
Back on number 9, you want to try to do the same things you did up there, number 1 and 2? That if the facility expresses that, or if
Yes.
an individual,
Yeah, that's a good idea, Van. I like that.
I like that, Van, too, because if we're getting people that are advertising on social media or something like that, they could be doing it in their home, and that still gives us the opportunity to reach in there, right?
Yep, I like that a lot. Then there's typically a provision for what we can do to revoke the licenses, and again, this just kind of articulates what we've talked about, but adding in there that if they violate any of our code sections, that would constitute a public nuisance or a criminal law affecting moral turpitude. So even if there's something out there that we didn't have in there, in other words, if we find, we don't have anything in here that prohibits child abuse, okay? And I don't know that we need to, but this catch-all provision, that if we find that they have children in there that is creating a hazardous condition to their health and their well-being, we could use that to shut them down. And it's kind of just a catch-all. So I like that. I think that was Salt Lake who had that in there. And then again here, the number D is any misrepresentation or false information on the application. And that goes back to why we're requiring, even though we know they may fudge some things, if we find out about it, we get to shut them down for misrepresentation. Now, we do have to provide due process through a hearing when we revoke this, and we do have to provide them an appeal process, so we'll do that. And then violations, any violation of the statute is a Class B misdemeanor, and each section constitutes a separate offense, and that's why we want to put so many different provisions in it, because it lets us load up on the prosecution side. And then number 2 is each day is a separate offense. Now, state laws do limit daily offense. It used to be every day your lawn was full of weeds and you could be charged for every single day. Well, the state went in and said no.
After the Gloria
when it-
Steinem
yeah.
lawn lady thing?
Yeah, when it applies to a zoning violation, you can only have one charge. You can't accumulate the different charges. But for criminal offenses, we can, every single day that an offense continues can be a separate charge. So when we're talking about exposure or the touching and the dressing inappropriately, those, if we can prove that they happen multiple times, we can charge multiple offenses. So that's what we found. That's kind of what we're looking at and drafting the ordinance, but any comments or thoughts?
Can you do anything with hours of operation?
Yeah, that's a, again, I don't think I saw any specific, but we certainly could do that. That's a very good idea,
You
man.
like that? Midnight massages.
We want to support every legitimate business and discourage everything that we're trying to keep out.
Right. We, in the 20 years I've been prosecuting, we have prosecuted massage parlors twice. And they were not licensed, they were running out of somebody's house both times.
But they were mostly just because they were unlicensed, or was it because of illicit
No,
situations?
it was illicit. It was
Okay.
illicit stuff. I've never prosecuted anybody for being an unlicensed massage parlor.
That's
But
in Lindon?
In Lindon, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Down in the Fieldstone houses, and one, I don't remember where the other one was. It was
Yeah, I
up
think that one hit the
here,
newspaper.
so.
But if you look over the last 10 years, how many neon lights advertising massages along State Street, up and down
up.
State Street, it's multiplied in it every year. You see another 1 or 2 or 5. So, I mean, I was just stunned seeing so many pop up along Orem, and of course you see them in the newspaper from time to time, but they started popping up in Pleasant Grove and American Fork, and so have you been able to get anything anecdotally from any of our neighboring cities of some of the problems, or?
I know American Fork has prosecuted a number of them, and it's like you were saying, they're finding that a lot of the perpetrators are really victims, you know,
Yes.
that have been brought over and put in a situation where they really don't have much of a choice, so they're being provided for, but if they refuse to
Right.
to give the massages that are causing the problems, you know, they're just not in a position that they can say no because of how they've been brought in
Right.
to the country. So that was not the case in the Lindon matters, but like I said, those were years ago, and they're not this type of facility that has raised your concern.
Thank you so much.
So did you get involved at all with the American Fork / multiple place situations where we had a resident who observed some things that were questionable?
I didn't.
You're not aware of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe our police department was involved in.
I think they were, yeah. The actual, it wasn't happening here, but it was
Right.
a home where,
They were at least notified.
Yeah.
That's probably the way I should phrase it.
Yeah, and I think the investigation led that the prosecution is taking place in American Fork.
yeah, American
Yeah.
Fork.
Are we seeing any uptick in sex slavery or bringing, like underage kids, or is that something we deal with here in the valley, or is that?
Oh, yes.
We're blessed not to have that. You said there is?
Oh, yes.
I was gonna say, it is at least in these last couple ones that
Well,
American
not
Fork
just in this particular industry, but yes, just and by and large, if you talk to anybody at the Operation Underground Railroad and some of the other companies or organizations that are similar to that, sadly, they will say that it is on the uptick in Utah County even.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay,
Good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your,
We'll
Work
get
on
an
this.
ordinance here pretty quick.
yeah, thank you. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the day. We have a motion to second, all in favor?
aye.
We already stand adjourned.
Hopefully Carolyn made her flight.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
I was here listening. It is hard to chime in on this Zoom, not wanting to interrupt people. There's just a hair of a lag. So anyways, appreciate you guys.
It's a
Great work.
challenge.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Will anything more happen with it? I'm just confused.
Not with that one.
You'll have to do a whole different one.